With over 70 years of history, Sebring International Raceway is a fixture of the North American road racing scene. In 1950, the former Hendricks Field Air Base was transformed into a racing circuit through the vision of Alec Ullman, who sought to create a home for road racing in the U.S. In the decades since, the cars and drivers may have changed, but Sebring's twists, turns, and bumps have largely remained the same. And today, they play host to round 11 of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS season. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sebring. It's a pleasure to have your company. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside, and Amanda Busick is in the pit lane. We'll hear from them momentarily. But first, let's take a tour of this wonderful venue, Sebring International Raceway, with our track preview.
This is Ashton Harrison, driver of the number 93 Harrison Contracting Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3 Evo 22, and I'm going to take you for a lap around Sebring International Raceway. As we approach the front stretch of the infamous Sebring International Raceway, we're preparing for one of the fastest corners, which is turn 1. Super late brakes as we approach, so come up on it. Super late brakes, turning in. We want to have our eyes up, start rolling on the throttle pretty aggressively as we start experiencing most of the bumps around this track. Coming into turn 3, it's another late braking zone. Really want to get the car squared up for this corner as we turn in, start rolling onto power, setting up for, which is a pretty slippery corner, turn 5, so patience on throttle and rolling back onto big power as we head towards turn 7. This is about the time where we could possibly check in with the crew if we need to, or prepare ourselves for battle. Coming into the hairpin, we're braking pretty late, big braking zone. Really want to get the car slowed down so we can get a really good exit out of here. Big power on the exit, but do want to be patient as there is sand on the outside, and that could get crazy pretty quickly if you were to drop a wheel. So coming into the back half of the track, coming into turn 10, another late braking zone, really heavy on the brakes, getting the car squared up on the exit and gradually applying throttle as we come to a pretty quick switch back. On these GT3 cars, it is flat and super fun. So coming into turn 13, another late braking zone. Eyes up as we gradually roll into power, and again, experiencing a lot of the bumps around this track can upset the car, so we want to make sure that we're placed in the proper position to be able to apply throttle. Fast Bishop's Bend, flat on the throttle on these GT3 cars, late braking, really want to get the car turned in for 15. Patience on throttle as we get a little bit of understeer. Coming into turn 16, this sets up for the long back straightaway. This is about the point where we really want to focus on nailing turn 17, as it is probably one of the most important corners into this track as we head onto the front stretch. So coming into turn 17, getting late into the brakes. Yep, heavy brake, eyes up, get prepared for the bumps, making sure we're in the right placement as we start applying throttle. And we go all the way out to the end of the wall. And we're back into the front stretch onto Sebring International Raceway.
Thanks to Ashton Harrison and the Racer's Edge team for the tour of Sebring, all 17 turns and 3.74 miles of this classic road course. Getting ready to go for the first of 2 races here this weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Championship battles, Calvin, in Pro and Am, more or less done and dusted, but Pro-Am, 3 teams within 4 points of one another. Absolutely outstanding how close the fight has been all year.
Yeah, it's all to play for there. Currently, the Pro-Am class is led by the Wright Motorsports duo of Jan Halen and Charlie Lucky. Won championships last year, of course, in SRO competition. It's a slender lead, though. They've had 3 wins on the year. Got a 2-point lead over Mario Farnbacher, Ashton Harrison, who we just rode on board with for the look at the race circuit here. They're coming off a brilliant weekend at Road America where they swept their class victories, and they're going to march. Conversely, the team that are in third, Colin Brown, George Kurtz, they had a disaster at Road America, and that's dropped them out of the championship lead, but they still sit only 4 points out. To
your point, they scored just 2 points across 2 races at Road America and saw themselves drop down the order, but still very much in the mix. And George Kurtz is running with a great deal of confidence right now. He dominated the GT America race earlier today, the single driver sprint format, and in so doing clinched the series championship.
He did, yeah, and put in a great performance. It was a wonderful drive, beautiful pass for the lead on Jason Howard, who is also going to be competing here today. So those two drivers have certainly learned a lot about the track conditions here today, but they're on the back foot a little bit. Colin Brown did not qualify well, that CrowdStrike entry for tomorrow's race, but George has actually split the two cars that he's fighting for that championship. So the Wright Motorsports car will actually now be starting from the Pro-Am pole, because we've got a little bit of a story that's developed here in the last hour or so in terms of who we thought was going to be our Pro-Am pole sitter. So it'll be the Wright Motorsports team, the championship leader, on the pole, the CrowdStrike Racing entry second in Pro-Am on the grid, and then Ashton Harrison third. So they're all right together there on the grid and for the start of this race.
And the reason for the change, and perhaps for the confusion to some degree, is the new arrival to the championship here this weekend. Conquest Racing and drivers Manny Franco, who, if you've been with us all season, you might remember from Pirelli GT4 America early in the season, a veteran as well of Ferrari Challenge competition. But Manny Franco teamed with Alessandro Balzan. They were initially listed as a pro entry when we saw the first entry list. Manny applied for and received a derogation to his FIA driver rating from a silver to a bronze. However, since qualifying this morning, I should back up. Because of that derogation, they were then moved to the Pro-Am class. But because of his pace in qualifying here this morning, that derogation has been revoked. He's now back to his silver rating, and they are now part of the Pro class for this race coming up later on here in just a few moments. So much at stake in today's race. Let's look at the very front of this field. It's going to be a hot day for everybody to deal with, and track conditions, the heat, the ambient, as well as the track temperature are going to be a storyline for sure in a 90-minute race. But K-Pax Racing on pole once again, although it should be noted that Michele Beretta and Andrea Caldarelli, they've not been on the best run of form as of late. It does seem like they've come to grips with that chassis that's been giving them some problems.
Yeah, we spoke to both Michele and Andrea here yesterday, and they just said we had a disaster at Road America. No idea why the car was such a handful, didn't have any straight line speed. Feel they're very much more in the mix here, but this is their first pro pole this year, remarkably, with Laura Spinelli pretty much dominating things, but that team, the US Racetronics team, are not competing here this weekend.
Taking a look at the starting grid here, Caldarelli and Beretta will start on pole. Beretta did the qualifying duties for race one. He will start today's race. He'll have Michael Dinan and Robbie Foley alongside. It's a big day for them. They need to capitalize today. Prior commitments for Michael Dinan tomorrow mean he will not take part, and the team will not take part in race two of the weekend.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because the BMW has shown very strong pace here this weekend. As you can see, they line up on the outside of the front row, and you look at the bottom of the charts there. Bill Auburn was actually the fastest driver here yesterday. Chandler Huller's had great pace as well, but some kind of an ECU issue on that car. We're going to get an update, I'm sure, from Amanda on this, but about an hour ago, Bill Auburn was texting with me saying we still have not found the drama with that car in qualifying, so hopefully they'll get it rectified for the green flag here.
That car had been very quick in the practice sessions. They'd had a good test here, the Bimmer World team, last week, but unfortunately all kinds of issues in that qualifying session, and they will start last in both races here this weekend, including, of course, the race that's about to begin momentarily. Scott Smithson had a good qualifying effort for DXDT. He'll share his car with Brian Sellers. David Askew shares his car with Dirk Muller, a guy who's had some good runs here at Sebring in the past.
Yeah, a couple of 12-hour wins back in 2011, 2012 for the BMW squad alongside Joey Hand. And Dirk loves this racetrack. He's doing a lot of action right now in North America, really gearing up for maybe a full season campaign in other championships not that far away on his radar as well. So loves this track, loves this team, says they're really making some progress. He feels like the AM's in that group with his teammate David Askew and Smithson. There's now be able to drive a car that's a little bit more edgy and will give them that ultimate lap time that he and Brian could maybe extract out of it. But with a Pro-Am driver lineup, no point in having a car that's so difficult to drive that you can get lap time but your teammate cannot.
This is the TR3 Racing team with a different driver lineup than they started the year with. We did see Burton and Lewis together at Road America, although they did have a trying weekend, I think it's safe to say. But Jeff's been comfortable, it would appear, here this weekend. He and Corey Lewis set to campaign this car. And again, they're making the switch over to the TR3 team based here in Florida. They've got some experience here at this track after starting the season with the Zalus team.
Yeah, really strong group led by the Romanelli brothers, and they turn out really fast Lamborghini. So I think this is a good fit. I mean, it just seemed like with the Zalus operation, there was a little bit of drama there, and I think it's a good fit for everyone, for them to do their own thing now, and for Jeff to find a different team to operate with. It's early days. I think they were just trying things out at Road America, see how it went, but it seems like there's now a commitment to doing the rest of the season together and see what happens for 2023 as well.
Word from race control is some maintenance is still required here at the facility, and so we will be delayed in getting this race started by about another 10 minutes or so. So while the track crew goes to work and making sure everything is set to go for the race, we're just going to lay out here for a moment, but we'll pick things right back up when we get close to the command to start engines, and we can get this race underway for you here from Sebring International Raceway. Track maintenance continues here at Sebring, still awaiting official word on when the competition will begin, but we are closing in on the start of the first of two races this weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. So much at stake here, Calvin. This is the final weekend on the traditional format when you think about two races per weekend. We got the 8-hour race coming up in 2 weeks' time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is worth double points, so there are still 2 full weekends worth of points up for grabs, but the way that they're paid out is quite different, and a lot rides on having a clean run here today in race 1 to still put yourself in a position to be able to go ahead for race 2.
Yeah, and when we look at the championship standings, I mean, the AM championship has already been decided for the Triazzi Competizione group, with Scardina and Triazzi winning that insurmountable lead. And in the pro category, it's going to be one of the K-Pax drivers, and it looks like Caldarelli will be the man. I mean, they've gone 4 races without a win, but he has a 47-point lead over Jordan Pepper, who drives the number 3 car now. Those two drivers started the year together. Then with the change in the regulations, where a silver category driver had to be part of a pro lineup, they got split. So it's going to be between those two, and then third in the points is Beretta. So if Caldarelli and Beretta can have a strong finish to the season, that may jump Beretta up ahead of Pepper as well in the standings. And the Winwood Racing team that have been on a roll of late, won 3 in a row, they're not here this weekend. And also another of the strong Mercedes teams, the US Racetronics team, is not here as well. So I think that'll make that path a little bit easier for Caldarelli to maybe seal the deal, if not today, tomorrow.
In the case of both of the teams that are absent that you made reference to, the focus for them with the championship out of reach has been to prepare themselves for the 8-hour. Sounds like some exciting driver lineups are in the offing up and down the grid. Excited to see what that's going to look like, as it's not only the season finale, of course, for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, but it also serves as the 3rd round in Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli. So important to these GT3 manufacturers. A globe-trotting championship, races on multiple continents, and of course headlined by the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa.
Yeah, and I think the whole concept there was to use the domestically based teams in the various championship rounds around the globe to compete and score those manufacturer points. And we're certainly going to see that at Indy, with all of our top teams included in being selected by the manufacturers. So some stacked decks. Is going to be a lot to play for. No GT4 class this year, so it's going to make it a little bit cleaner race, and I think it's going to be spectacular. I mean, that racetrack is ideally suited to these GT3 machines. We've had some great runs there in the past, and I expect a lot more of the same here in a couple of weeks.
Certainly so, and then a very exciting finale. Of course, it was supposed to be at Kyalami for various reasons. That wasn't possible. This is for the Intercontinental GT Challenge, I should clarify, and the decision was made to switch and make the Gulf 12 hours, which had a good history in its own right, but to make that the final leg of Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli this year. And the early reports are that the grid for that is basically oversubscribed. So absolutely huge, and the growth of sports car racing in the Middle East continues to be eye-opening.
It is, and it's going to be a spectacular event. Great conclusion to the IGTC Championship calendar. But right now, I think as I certainly focused on a couple of weeks' time for what is the next round in that championship. But here today, I think we've got a great battle that's going to ensue here. I think the BMWs look very strong today. Unfortunately for the BIM World team, they've had some technical issues with that car that was the fastest car on the racetrack here yesterday in the free practice session. So see if they can rebound and find out what's exactly wrong with that race car before the green flag here this afternoon. But Robbie Foley, Michael Dinan, expect that Turner Motorsports car starting from the front row to be a definite threat here for the win here today. Cars always had good straightaway speed, and I think the BLP has been adjusted a little bit, and now they seem to be somewhat in their sweet spot.
Time now to welcome the 3rd member of the crew into the broadcast. Who have you caught up with, Amanda?
Well, I'm sitting next to Alessandro Balzan, who is in that Ferrari here this weekend, joining us in Sebring. We talked about how Manny was changed back to the silver, so they will be a pro entry here in race number 1 in Sebring. And finding that out, does it change the approach to the race that you guys had planned?
No, I have to say Manny kind of always expected to be in pro, so it's a very nice for a guy. I'm not that nice, but he shows speed. And for us, it's really a learning process, these 2 races at the end of the season. We really don't want to get involved with the other guys fighting for the championship. We just want to see the checkered flag, do as many laps in the car as we can, you know, and learn and really achieve a lot of data. And hopefully we can, you know, if we can have a shot for the pro overall victory, I mean, why not?
Showcasing this Ferrari GT3 here at Sebring. You're going to have it on pole position tomorrow. What can you tell us about this car and with this track specifically?
Well, it's a great car, you know. Ferrari, the 488 actually just celebrated 500 wins all over, you know, all over the world with the win. And actually, I was very lucky because in 2016, I actually did the worldwide debut of the car winning the 12 hours of Sebring. So the 488 is a very strong car here at Sebring. It's incredible on the bumps. I drove other cars, but I have to say the Ferrari is really strong on the bumps, and here at Sebring helps.
Well, your competition now today is that Turner Motorsport BMW. You have two K-Pax cars, one driver that is looking for a championship here this weekend. How does that up the ante of competition today?
You know, I always have big respect for the guys that has been full season. That's how I want to be treated when I was on a championship hunt and driver get in the last minute of the last race. I don't want to get involved, you know, because it's a great championship. We want to be professionals, and again, for us, the main target is to go and finish the races.
So great to have Alessandro Balzan. What a great character, so enthusiastic every time you talk to him. But on top of that, rapid behind the wheel, and what a great asset for someone like Manny Franco, who's making his first ever GT3 start here today, to have Alessandro in his corner.
Yeah, so much experience. I mean, a three-time champion here in North America with this formula, this class of car. As he said, he made the debut and got the win here at Sebring back in 2016. So great history here in the 12-hour for Alessandro. But he was Manny's coach. Obviously a natural pick for a partner when Manny wanted to try and dip his toe in the water here with GT3 competition. And what a debut. I mean, we thought it was Manny going to be on the Pro-Am pole. He's now going to line up fourth in overall on the grid. And then Alessandro was fastest and will start from the pole overall and in the what will now be a Pro Class entry for tomorrow as well. So Conquest Racing, top-notch team, run multiple cars in Ferrari Challenge. The team owner there and team lead, Eric Bachelard, great racer himself, so much history there, and just a first-class operation. So a surprise to come in, as tough as the competition is, and stick it right at the front. But when you really think about the credentials of everyone involved, maybe not so much.
How does it affect the team and the driver, Manny in particular, to get the word, yep, the derogation's been pulled, you're going to be in the Pro Class, and didn't get a ton of time to process that kind of straight into the race car?
Yeah, I don't think it's a massive curveball. As Alessandro alluded to, when we rocked up here this week, he was listed as a pro entry, and they got the derogation here yesterday and thought they had the Pro-Am pole. But it's still a solid weekend. I mean, they're showing great pace. Now it's all about putting laps on the board. Pit stop execution will be pivotal for them, I think, today in terms of just getting that group together chemistry-wise and gelling to put it all together. And they've got the challenge of this racetrack in front of them as well.
Let's talk about this racetrack, Calvin. 17 turns, 3.74 miles. The pace this morning in qualifying was remarkable. A couple cars coming in under GT3 lap record times. That, of course, as you can see, said by Patrick Long going back to last year. But looking around this track, what stands out to you?
Well, what stands out are the bumps. I mean, it's pretty flat. There's not a lot of elevation change, obviously, on an airfield type circuit, but very demanding, classic circuit. I mean, some of the drivers that have raced here in the past said it's like riding on a mechanical bull at times and hitting a paint shaker when you go down these concrete runways with the seams that were involved there. So the big challenge is getting the car set up, keeping that footprint of that Pirelli tire on the deck as much as you can. But as you can see, a car when it launches through turn 17, you're just along for the ride, and being consistent with your line through there and not hitting them up a little bit differently than the lap you did it before is really the key to success, and just keeping the car out of the fence.
Should be a lot of fun. Great track, puts on great shows year after year. Well, we talk about the battle in the Pro-Am title hunt, and Wright Motorsports right there in the mix as they were a year ago. Amanda, you found one of the protagonists, John Halen.
Right there in the mix, and now on the pole in the Pro-Am with the change for Conquest Racing into that Pro Class. You said Charlie found out right before he got into the car. When you think of this championship hunt, how crucial is that here at a track at Sebring?
Shoot, every point counts for us. So good news for us. I do feel bad for the Conquest guys. They've done a really good job all weekend long. So, but yeah, for us, it's all about collecting points and our goal for the weekend is to stay where we are in the championship, and then we go to Indy, which we're all really looking forward to.
You wrapped up a championship for yourself last year with Fred Portad. Now you're sharing the season with your father-in-law. When you think of the memories that have been made this year between you guys, what stood out the most?
It's been such a long process. It's not just this year. We were talking about it last night. This is year 5 or 6 that we've been together. So it's been just an incredible journey, and for me, but especially for Charlie. You know, coming to the team with having been away from racing for decades, and then coming back to us and having been there from the very beginning, and then to be here today and this year with Charlie and fighting for the championship is incredible.
As someone with immense experience here, Jan, everyone talks about the bumps here at Sebring. We're having crazy heat here today. What is the balance that you have to find as a driver?
Yeah, it's the heat. Believe it or not, the heat is what for us is the biggest factor. We qualified this morning, and the car feels great, and then I'm sure it's not going to feel the same this afternoon, and that's all because of the heat. The bumps here in Sebring, coming to Sebring, that's going to be bumpy. It's why it's why I love Sebring. So really looking forward to the race, but it's going to be very challenging for us.
Already taking precautions with the heat. I do believe you're wearing an ice vest underneath that suit. So guys, it is toasty down here, but the drivers are approaching it with good form.
Thank you.
Anything you could do to stay cool down there on the grid, right, Calvin?
Yeah.
That helps so much to enter the car at least relatively cool, knowing that you're probably going to heat up over the course of your stint.
Yeah, preparation as a driver in a race like this is really key. So it's how you hydrate, what you ate last night, how you've hydrated through the last 24 hours to prep for this. Hopefully the mechanics have got all the blower systems and the cool suits working correctly to give you as much assist as you possibly can have, because it is pretty brutal. Fortunately, it's cooled down a little bit from yesterday. It was oppressive here yesterday, probably the worst conditions I've experienced here at Sebring in terms of the heat. So we've got a little bit of respite here today, thank goodness.
You heard Jan talk about the fact that the track is going to feel different in the race compared to qualifying, which was done in the relative cool of the morning. What will you notice most as a driver as the temperature comes up, both ambient and on the track? How will that most affect the handling of the car?
Well, you're just going to lose downforce. When it's a little bit cooler, you generate a little bit thicker air, so it gives the car a little bit more push down at the racetrack. And admittedly, this morning, the ambient temperature was like, I think, high 70s when they went out for qualifying. We're looking at mid-90s potentially here by the end of the afternoon. So, and the racetrack's going to get hot, slick. I mean, tire deg is not massive here at Sebring in terms of tire degradation, but it's going to slip and slide. So over the course of a 40 to 50-minute run, you're going to have your hands full. And when your arms and elbows through some of these corners and dealing with the bumps, and when it's hot as well, it really wears you out very, very quickly.
This is a sign we must be getting close to getting this race underway. These teams will wait as long as possible to start pulling the Pirelli P0s out of the tire ovens to maintain as much of that heat as possible. So they must have received word we are getting close to firing the engines and turning the cars loose. Michael Dynan, impressive as ever in qualifying. We've seen that out of him so frequently, and his starts and restarts are can't-miss television.
You're reading my mind. I was just thinking about this. What will he do with Beretta here on this initial start? He's not afraid to send it. We've seen it so many times. Can't forget that move he did up at Watkins Glen through the inner loop there. So he's not afraid, and he's got nothing to lose. They're not in this championship picture. He's going to miss tomorrow, so he's going to be in full send mode, I would think, here on this opening lap.
Caleb Beretta getting settled in as he's about to go to work, getting some help with the radio and getting buckled in from his co-driver, Andrea Caldarelli. Andrea named a few months ago to be part of Lamborghini's prototype driver pool when they go prototype racing here in a couple of years, but he has made a name for himself with that brand, racing this GT3 Huracan all over the world. So much success in Europe, coming stateside last year for a first full season at least. He'd done some of the big Enduros before, but he and Jordan Pepper winning the championship here in Fanatec GT in the States, in addition to what he did over in Europe, and that continues here in 2022.
Yeah, there you see him outside the car as McKaylee gets ready to rock and roll here, and just a ton of experience. Has always been mega fast. He's also run race teams, so I think he understands the whole complexity of racing, and I think that's a big advantage. We talk about race drivers who become team owners or team managers. Certainly for Andrea, he's experienced both sides of the pit wall. during his career so far, so I think it really puts him in good stead. He's got great chemistry. That K-Pax team, it seemed like all of the drivers get along very well. I think he and Jordan were disappointed that they did get split up at the beginning of the year. I'm sure they would have liked to repeat together as champions, but they fought hard. I mean, that #1 car, the black car, the chassis there, they've had a few dramas with it over the last 12 months, dating back to last year even, in terms of some weekends it just doesn't seem to want to turn itself on. Not literally, but in terms of performance.
This is Scott Smithson, DXDT Racing, the team. Scott coming off a career best finish in the last race at Road America. That was by far the best weekend they put together. Scott and Brian Sellers, 4th and 2nd in those 2 races up in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. 8th in points, 87 out of the championship, but this has been a year of learning for Scott Smithson, and we've seen the pace and we've seen the results improve over the course of the season, and you have to think he's setting himself up nicely looking ahead to 2023.
Yeah, I really think so, because he came out of the box strong. I was impressed what he did at St. Petersburg when he ran the GT America race there. In Brian Sellers, you couldn't ask for a better guy to have as a mentor, as a coach, and as a co-driver, because Brian's got tremendous speed as well. He's won here at Sebring. We've got a number of previous Sebring 12-hour winners. Brian won in 2012 and 2018, and Corey Lewis was teamed up with he and Madison Snow that weekend for Paul Miller Racing. So he loves this racetrack, great history here. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, both for Brian Sellers, Dirk Mueller with that DXDT team, their AM partners are now starting to get a little bit more confidence in the car. That means you can maybe take out some of the comfort factor in a car by just gluing it to the racetrack, freeing it up a little bit. That will give it some speed, and I think that will allow Brian and Dirk as pros to really fight it out a little bit more at the front of the pack.
No car on the grid with more question marks hanging over it before this race than this one. This is Bill Oberlin and Chandler Hull. Chandler will do the driving duties to start here in race 1. They had some kind of an electronic issue in qualifying that caused them to lose power, have to start at the back of both grids this weekend. Both races, they'll be at the back of the pack. They hope they've got it sorted, but they've not been on track since qualifying, and there's no way to know for sure.
No, there isn't. I mean, you can run all the electronic checks. You could maybe see something, a fault, and correct it, but until that car actually runs at full pace around this circuit, Chandler will be giving them the big thumbs up, or, oh no, we've still got the issue here on this formation lap, I would think.
Report is that start your engines command should be given here in just a couple of minutes. We look in at Erin Vogel. She and Michael Cooper have been struggling through the second half of this season, and to their credit, they have persevered and gotten some decent results, even on weekends where the pace might not have been there in this race car. But the outright pace simply has eluded them, and that's been a big surprise for not just that driver pairing, but the whole real-time team, especially when the other Acura team, Racer's Edge, has been so strong.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when you look at the pedigree, I mean, Erin has done such a tremendous job in terms of learning her craft behind the wheel. Michael's pedigree, I mean, multiple champion in SRO and World Challenge competition. And the team, great history, scored their 100th victory at Road America a couple of years ago with Dane Cameron and Mike Edlin with the same, not the specific car, but the same platform, the Acura NSX. So we expected great things when that combination came together, but for some reason, they can get the car so it feels good, the balance is good, everything feels okay, and that's frustrating. If the car's a nightmare to drive, then you think, okay, that's where the pace, that loss is. But when the car feels good, you're kind of left kind of holding your hands in the air and scratching your head saying, I don't know how to make this car any quicker. When they put it on the racetrack compared to the other cars, they always seem to be towards the back half of the field. But they keep digging, did a 2-day test recently here, and but time is running out on their season. They're looking to try and break through this weekend or at Indy.
This is a look at Justin Wetherill. He and Ryan Dial share this car. Triarsi Competizione. Dial was really quick in his qualifying session for race 2 of the weekend. These two teamed up to win race 1 at VIR a couple of months ago. And Justin making the step up to GT3 racing here this year after some time and numerous championships in Ferrari Challenge. And they're starting to find their stride, too, as the season progressed.
They really have, and I like Justin a lot. I mean, he's another young man who's really on the, the bottom end of the learning curve, but he's got a great team there. He's got a great teammate in Ryan. He's super chill. Nothing seems to faze Justin, even though he had a bit of a disastrous weekend at Road America. They're basically in their backup chassis here for this weekend, really focused on the 8-hour, where they've got a really strong driver lineup. I'm not sure they've announced it yet, so I'll let the cat in the bag here today on the broadcast. But they're looking ahead to the 8-hour, but Ryan showed great pace. I think he's on the front row for tomorrow's race. And Justin just trying to get back into the groove. He hasn't sat in a race car since he had those couple of hits at Road America a few weeks back.
Had to miss those 2 races there, but back and ready to go for round 1 of this weekend, at least here at Sebring International Raceway. Cars rolling out on the formation lap, getting ready to go for the first of 2 races this weekend. Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Cars with the tires fresh out of the tire ovens, but shouldn't have any trouble getting heat into them here this weekend with the impressive Florida heat making itself felt, although it should be said somewhat more temperate today than it has been throughout the weekend to this point. But the drivers, to a man and woman, have discussed just how difficult it's been dealing with the heat inside the cockpit of these GT3 cars. Taking a look at what we expect here today, especially with the promotion of the Conquest Racing Ferrari to the Pro class, that spices up the Pro battle a little bit. We are up to 4 cars now in that class as a result. Really curious to see what they can do. This is the starting grid for the race here today. Michele Beretta qualified on pole for K-Pax. He'll have Michael Dinan alongside in the Turner BMW. Great qualifying effort for young Michael earlier today. Misha Goikberg in the sister K-Pax car will start in the 3rd starting position. And Manny Franco, recently promoted back to the Pro class, will start 4th in his first ever GT3 appearance. And we get to our AM class pole sitter. Charlie Scardina starting 5th overall, ahead of the Pro-Am class pole sitter Charlie Luck for Wright Motorsports, the points leader in the Pro-Am class. George Kurtz in 7th alongside Ashton Harrison for Riley Motorsports and Racers Edge Motorsports, respectively, in what was a very tight qualifying session up and down the grid. Scott Smithson set to start 9th. Justin Wetherell in the 10th position for DXDT Racing and Triarci Competizione, respectively. Then behind them, DXDT team owner and driver David Askew in 11th. Jeff Burton for TR3 will start in the 12th spot. Back in 13th is where you'll find Aaron Vogel for Real-Time Racing in one of 2 Acura NSX GT3 Evos in the field. Frank Gannett starts alongside back in the 14th spot. And at the back of the grid, Chandler Hull for Bimmerworld, hoping that the electrical gremlins that they suffered in qualifying have been resolved. They expect that they'll know on the formation laps, and they'll make their decisions accordingly. But he is due to roll off at the back of the field. I don't see him, though, at the back of that train. No. So that could be an ominous sign for the Bimmer World team.
Yeah, that is an ominous sign. And we just got a note from Amanda. She just checked in with Bill Aublin. It was an issue similar to what he'd experienced in a different championship earlier this summer, where basically the cam timing gets in a certain position and the engine goes to reduce boost so it doesn't blow itself up. So it's a pretty obscure problem to have. And sometimes if you're not getting the car, if you're doing a test day, that could probably work through the motions, get it sorted out. But by not being able to get back on the track since qualifying, as you said, Ryan, the fact that he's not right at the tail of this field and running at the same pace may be an indicator. But there he is. So maybe he's just had a little bit of a delay. He's there behind the 12 car. Frank Gannett. So maybe Frank was delayed a little bit away from the grid, and maybe Chandler does have pace. That would be great news, because that could be impressive to see how far they can carve their way through this field. As I said, it was the fastest car here yesterday in free practice.
This team has finished on the podium in each of the last 3 races. They've been a fixture on the podium in the Pro-Am class all year, still seeking that first win. 4th in points, but only 24 tallies out of the points lead. The report is, initially at least, everything seems to be working properly. We cross our fingers and hope that that holds true for the duration of this 90-minute race. 2 drivers pit stop halfway through, full service stop for tires and fuel, driver change as well. In the Pro-Am class, it's the lower graded of the 2 drivers by regulation that starts the race here today. The pros and the Pro-Am lineups will take over at that mandatory pit window, which straddles the halfway mark in today's race. There it is. Chandler Hull, the Bimmer World car, has caught the tail end of the field. And very soon we'll know for sure whether or not they've been able to work through the problems that have been maligning them throughout the course of the weekend. One of our onboard cameras is with Chandler Hull and Bimmer World, watching him carve through this field. That could be a lot of fun, assuming everything is up to snuff when the green flag flies.
Yeah, it could be spectacular. I mean, ideally what they'd love to do is gain some track position, maybe catch a full course yellow. We haven't seen a lot of those this season, but if they did catch a break with that, compress the field, then maybe they could potentially get back on that Pro-Am podium here today.
Lights off on the safety car. The field into 2x2 alignment. The pole sitter is Michele Beretta in the black K-Pax Racing Lamborghini. He'll have Michael Dinan in the Turner Motorsports BMW M4 GT3 lined up alongside in that car, and that driver have been dynamite on race starts and restarts. So keep an eye on them as the field enters the VP acceleration zone. Tom Hansing, the flagman, in that starter stand, waiting to give the green, and he does. We're racing at Sebring in a big spin in the back of the pack. That's Erin Vogel. She's gone around and appeared to make contact with the inside wall. Chandler Hull caught up in it as well. The fight is on for the lead, though. We stay green for the moment. Beretta grabs the top spot. The fight is on for third.
Yeah, this is tight here now as they come down into that brake zone as Manny Franco on the outside in that dark-colored Ferrari. Misha going back to the inside. What a dramatic day for the Bimmer World squad. Those technical issues look like they were fixed, and then they get involved before we even get to the stripe.
Frank Gannett dropped a spot there to David, or took a spot rather from David Askew a little bit further back in the pack. Great start there for Beretta to grab the lead. Let's look at the replay. Oh, everyone just fanning out, and there wasn't room for Chandler.
Yeah, I think the green wave, Chandler went to move, and Erin went to make a similar move on the car in front of her, and there was contact immediately, as you could tell.
That will almost certainly bring out a full course yellow on this first lap. Chandler Hull, can you imagine the frustration? First, the relief to know that the car was ready to go to take the start of this race. That was very much in doubt, but at last, well, they didn't even make it to the start line.
And, you know, and potentially, I mean, we know that BMW is pretty in its infancy stage in terms of spares and stuff available. We saw the Turner Motorsports team, they had a couple of parts that they were shy of in terms of getting it fixed down at Road America. So hopefully that hit is not problematic in terms of what damage is done at that race car, and even seeing the green flag tomorrow. So that's a bigger picture story, but what a shame to see them out, potentially with a car that was healthy and was going to carve its way through the field with the pace they've displayed here this weekend.
Hard break for the Bimmer World team. Chandler Hull and Bill Oberlin apparently out of the race in just the first minute of competition. Race one of the weekend at Sebring. And not even 2 minutes into this race and already major implications here. That was a car that at least mathematically had a decent shot at the title. Only 24 points back coming into this race, but eliminated early. Will not score points here today. And you bring up the point that spare parts across the board are in short supply, especially so for a brand new car like the BMW M4 GT3. That does put some doubt into that car's availability for race number 2 tomorrow. Such disappointment.
Just thinking about it, the good news is the Turner Motorsports car is not going to be in operation tomorrow, so maybe they can salvage parts from a sister team, maybe.
That's an interesting point, and we have seen teams that share a common manufacturer help one another out when push comes to shove. Michael Dinan, speaking of the Turner team, got a good start as usual, made a challenge for the lead into turn 1, and ultimately settled back in line, but this full course yellow will give him a chance on a restart where he has been so good over his career, not just in Fanatec GT, but go back to what he did in Pirelli GT4 America a couple of years ago. That's where he started to make a name for himself on these starts and restarts.
He had a ton of wins that year, swept both championships that year, so he's a really confident young man. He's got great tutelage from Robbie Foley, who's been kind of tied at his hip here over the last 2 or 3 seasons. So, and he's going to give it a go. I don't think he's going to be intimidated by Beretta at all. And it may come down to that first lap when he's in close proximity to him, if he can make a power move on him around this circuit somewhere.
Dynan and Foley won their class at Watkins Glen, race 1. That was a race where the pro class did not win overall, however. But it's been a decent year, maybe not quite the pace that they would have hoped for relative, especially early in the year, to the K-Pax cars, kind of shades of what we saw last year. Yeah. But as they've come to grips with this new M4, it does seem like they've become stronger as the year has progressed.
I think they're learning a lot, as you would expect. And there's not been a ton of testing done by some of these teams this summer, so a lot of the learning is done on the race weekends itself. But just a really good group. Jay O'Connell is their technical director there. So much experience, particularly with the BMW brand over the years. A lot of work with Multimatic, who just an excellent technical group.
It's a great team, so many accomplishments over the years. Robbie Foley has become such an important part of it in multiple championships. And he has really brought Michael Dynan along over the past few seasons from the GT4 ranks into the GT3 side of things right now, running second behind the safety car. Still running behind the safety car at Sebring International Raceway. Should point out that Erin Vogel has brought the real-time Acura to the pit lane. She was able to limp her way around, and that car right now being looked at by the real-time crew. Meanwhile, let's check in with Amanda, who's got an update from the Bimmer World team on a heartbreaking start to the weekend.
Standing by with Bill Oberlin, of course, we've went into detail on the frustrations that they had in qualifying. Bill, you said that you had to rip your earphones off because Chandler was screaming so loud, just an emotion of frustration. You've seen the replay. How hard was that to look at?
I didn't get it exactly right, but, you know, we've had a little bit of frustration, like you said. We came here, we tested for days, and these Beamer World guys have worked very hard on the setup, and we were quickest in the practice before we were going to qualify, and we were looking really good. Then we worked on our race setup, and then all of a sudden we had a weird little computer glitch take us out of qualifying. So that's why we were at the back. Chandler probably could have been right up front. I've been somewhere up front. What's so weird is this is the first year of the BMW M4 GT3, and I think I was just in my head. We completed every lap of every race up to this point. And it went in my mind yesterday. I'm like, don't jinx it, right? So anyways, I got a little work cut out for us with the Bimmer World guys to get this thing back together. It doesn't look very nice. It looked like maybe somebody turned into him, and then he had nowhere to go with the wall. I haven't quite seen it, but what a shame.
Thank you, Bill.
I'll put a positive spin on things, all things considered, as you'd expect from a veteran like Bill Oberlin, but you have to believe he is so frustrated never to get a chance to show how strong that car could be today.
Yeah, because we talk about the fight at the front there in that Pro-Am category with 3 teams separated by just 4 points. Oberlin and Chandler came into this weekend 24 back, but with the car strong, you can make a big move if you dominate a weekend and you sweep, because you're going to gain a minimum of 14 points. Depending on the other guys finishing runner-up. So there was potential here with the car running as strong as it was here yesterday to really dig into that championship lead, and it's all gone south of them today.
Well, looking at the pace of what Dynan and Foley have done this weekend, the Bimmer World guys have been right there with the Turner team for much of the season. The 2 BMWs pretty close in their pace, and that gives you some idea of what might have been possible here this weekend, but it wasn't meant to be, and I think Bill brought it up, and he's right. It all comes back to that qualifying session, starting in a position where on merit or on pace alone you wouldn't find yourself, and as a consequence, maybe just caught in an uncomfortable spot, and there was no escape there for Chandler.
Yeah, I think when it's green, you can pass before the stripe. On the initial start, and restarts is different. You got to wait for the start-finish line. So everyone's up on the pipe. They're ready to go. I think the green flew. You get that radio communication. Chandler jumped out around Erin, and I think she at the same time, like a split second later, was trying to jump around David Askew, who's immediately in front of her on the grid, and there was the contact. So from Erin's perspective, there's nothing Chandler could do. He's in race mode. He's going for it, and I think for Erin, she wasn't thinking that maybe Chandler had that run on her from the left flank and didn't see it, was just focused on the car in front of her trying to jump around. So just one of those racing incidents, unfortunately.
Cleanup just about complete. That is what remains.
Pretty good leg on that left front.
Mm-hmm. the Bimmer World BMW. Did look like lights were off on the safety car. Indeed, that is the case. So we should be coming around to restart this race. And about a half a lap of green flag racing to this point. Beretta continues to lead Dynan, Goikberg, and Franco. The top 4 cars overall are all in the Pro class. Charlie Scardina in the Lone Am class car runs 5th overall. Then you find the Pro-Am leader, Charlie Luck, Ashton Harrison, George Kurtz, 2nd and 3rd in Pro-Am. Those are the top 3 in Pro-Am points, and there they are, line astern coming to the restart.
Yeah, the top 3 and in that order. So Harrison did get around Kurtz there on that opening lap because George had qualified 1 spot ahead of Ashton.
Pace car has accelerated away, and we're about to go back to green here at Sebring. Beretta has Dynan tucked in under the rear wing. Apparently the repairs are still underway, or perhaps the Ghost has come away from that Acura for real-time racing. But in the meantime, the green flag is back out. Here we go. The long drag race down into turn 1. The car's fanning out. Here comes Harrison looking to make a move for the lead in Pro-Am.
Great anticipation there on the restart. Charlie Luck tries to go side by side. Means Ashton's going to have to give up a little bit of that throttle application. Rubbing elbows there down into the brake zone for Christensen corner. This is tight. She just clears him.
Big move for Ashton Harrison to take the top spot away from Charlie Luck in the Pro-Am ranks, now running 5th overall. Luck now will have to deal with George Kurtz, who already won a race here today in GT America competition.
Dynan there off and on a little bit, coming through turn 5. Tire pressures aren't where they need to be. Obviously running around behind the safety car as well. The temps will have dropped a little bit. Won't take long in these conditions, though, of getting them back into their sweet spot. You've got to try and hang tough here with Beretta. See if you can keep him close here on this opening lap. Maybe make a move down the Ullman straightaway.
And the car 4th in the picture is Manny Franco in his GT3 debut. Got elevated to the Pro class just before the start of this race. A nice solid run here in the early going, holding down the fort in 4th spot. Super
impressive. Really nice guy. Met him at Daytona earlier this season. Just really respectful and enjoying his racing, doing a great job. He's won races in Ferrari Challenge, but this is a whole other level here this afternoon, and he's taken to it very, very quickly. Beretta, Dynan, Goikberg, the top 3. Then you get back here to Franco, running 4th. Charlie Scardina, he runs 5th. Once again, showing great pace for Triarsi Competizione. Look at this, though. Beretta feeling the pressure from Dynan. He's going down to the inside, perhaps a little bit defensive. Dynan taking a look around the outside. Coming into Sunset Bend, this long, sweeping, blind, and bumpy right-handed corner. The final turn here at Sebring. Yeah, Dynan's keeping it tight, right? Looked like he had a slight edge in straightaway speed, but not enough to jump around Beretta here. So Beretta's going to have to use every ounce of his experience. Ran here about 5 years ago. I think it was 2017. He did the 12-hour race here. So he knows the circuit has been a while. As he said to me yesterday, the bumps haven't gotten any smaller.
Oh, did you see that slide from Goikberg coming out of turn 1? Had to make a big-time correction to keep his green K-Pax Lamborghini facing the right direction. But there he is, still running down in the 3rd spot, dropping a little bit off the top 2.
Beretta really carved through those corners very nicely there. Has gapped on a little bit on this sector. Takes the pressure off down into the brake zone.
Couple other changes for position on that last lap. David Askew now runs 6th in Pro-Am. He and Frank Gannett both made a pass of Justin Wetherill. So they're 6th, 7th, and 8th in that order. Askew, Gannett, Wetherill a little bit further back in the running order.
This is turn 10. This is Cunningham corner. Like the BMW's equally as strong through this sort of like longer radius corners. It looked like that really tight stuff 3 through 5 where the Lamborghini was able to gain a little bit on Dynan, but right now he's caught him back up again. Maybe within striking distance. Great set of corners right here. Really high speed, beautiful flow and rhythm to them. Watch here, you'll set up all the way right outside the track limits there and getting the car set up for a good straight line through that final corner onto the Ullman straight.
At the end is waiting turn 17. Unlike just about any turn you'll find around the country or around the world, especially so as you get into the twilight. It's named Sunset Bend for a reason.
Makes it really tricky to see your sight line and pick up your reference points down there later in the afternoon. And then that's just the start of the adventure. Once you turn in, where are those bumps? Am I hitting them at exactly the same angle, the same yaw rate in the car?
Lovely soundtrack, GT3 racing, so many different power plants, different sounds, naturally aspirated versus forced induction, and all running at relatively equal pace. Top 10 in qualifying this morning, Calvin. We're separated by 1 second. That's it. Remarkable how close these cars are running to one another.
That's on a 2-minute lap. This is not one of the short circuits that we've run on. I mean, the longest is Road America course, just over a tad over 4 miles. So this is a long track to have such a tight grid of about a second.
15 minutes into race 1 of the weekend at Sebring. Look at the lone AM-Class car here this weekend. They've had some competition off and on throughout the year. AF Corsa in the early part of the year. We've seen GMG come with a car as recently as Road America. And maybe it took them a little while to find their sea legs, but by the first third of the season or so, no matter who showed up within the AM class, Charlie Scardina and Onofrio Triarsi had established themselves as the top in that class, and more often than not, factors when you factor them into the Pro-Am lineup too.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, Charlie's just got tremendous pace, and Onofrio has really learned the game very quickly as well. Kind of made their debut here last year with immediate effect, winning the AM class on day 1. Had a big incident exiting turn 1 on day 2, so they didn't see the checkered flag that day, but nonetheless showcased what they were capable of and came back and won the championship this year.
Just over 15 minutes elapsed, and it's Michele Beretta leading the way by just about 0.6 of a second. Michael Dinan in hot pursuit for Turner Motorsport out of turn 17.
Today's coverage is brought to you by Fanatec, AWS, and CrowdStrike.
Michele Beretta starting to find the pace here as we get deeper into the run. His last lap was the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, and he had over half a second in hand relative to second place running Michael Dinan. Misha Goikberg in the second K-Pax car back in third, running a couple tenths off of what Dinan was running. So the top 3 are starting to separate one another. And then you find Manny Franco back in the 4th spot. But it's a hornet's nest behind him with Scardina, Harrison, Luck, Kurtz, and Burton all relatively close to one another. Towards the middle of the pack, but at the front of the Pro-Am battle.
Yeah, and Manny Franco again doing a tremendous job. He's only 9/10 back of Misha Goikberg, so that's a tremendous performance. And I think the real key is if he can keep it tight here, not lose too much ground to these leaders, it's certainly going to give Alessandro Balzan an opportunity later in this race to maybe make a fight of it, at least for a podium, maybe more.
Franco matching the pace of the much more experienced Goikberg, who has been racing, whether in single-seaters or in sports cars, for over a decade at this point. He does have considerable seat time in the Lamborghini platform to boot. As mentioned, Franco does come from a Ferrari Challenge background. It's the same 488 platform, but much different car, the Challenge car versus the GT3 version that he's running here.
I like Misha. He enjoys his racing, very dedicated to it. And I think he's found a great home there with K-Pax. They've got so much experience on that pit wall. High quality guys, great operation. And you couldn't ask for a faster teammate than he has in Jordan Pepper.
He's had 2 good teammates this year, in fairness. He started the season with Giacomo Altoe as his co-driver, who perhaps doesn't have the same name recognition, but within the Lamborghini lineup is certainly well regarded, and we saw what he could do on a number of occasions here last year. But Altoe ran the first couple of races alongside Goikhberg, and after the change in regulations changed some of these driver lineups around following those Sonoma races, he's been paired with Pepper. It's been a good pairing. They've been fun to watch. Meanwhile, we watch Manny Franco start to close in a little bit on Misha Goikhberg, and for more on him, let's go down to Amanda.
Well, Ryan, you mentioned his experience in Ferrari Challenge. He jumped on the season last year around Road America and was just immediately impressive in that series. And then I want to go back to a couple weeks ago. See, earlier in the year at VIR, Manny Franco had an off incident that he's been recovering from, not only physically, but mentally. It's affected him as well in his performance in the car. 2 weeks ago at Sonoma, the Ferrari Challenge race, the last race of the season domestically, Manny Franco got another win for himself, and you could just see his eyes come alive in his excitement of being a race car driver again. So to see this performance here this weekend, back and doing what he loves, I imagine that performance is also driving his success here this weekend so far.
1 minute, 10 seconds to go. Still, 1 hour, 10 minutes to go here at Sebring. And Manny Franco continuing to pursue Misha Goikhberg for that third spot. Not much experience to draw upon, but he's been a quick study.
Just that personal best in sector 1 and 2 here, so he's got a good lap going here. And does look super smooth, doesn't look erratic, doesn't make mistakes. And all part of this learning process. I mean, he has jumped in here with both feet and found some form immediately. Seems to be a really good fit for him, not too much of a stretch.
Manny Franco hunting down Misha Goikhberg through turn number 1. Young American driver chasing down the Canadian. Manny Franco unsure exactly what the rest of this year's going to look like for him, but it does sound like this Conquest Racing team is going to be on the grid at Indianapolis. The only question is what the driver lineup is going to be, but Eric Bachelard and company, they've got a good package to work with here with this 488.
Yeah, based on what Manny Franco's doing, I'd be very surprised if Manny's not on the grid at Indianapolis, because, I mean, there's the health concern, as Amanda alluded to. He's still got some suffering from some physical ailments from that shunt that he had earlier this summer. But in terms of performance and feeling comfortable in this level of competition, his fast lap was his last one. And that puts him as the second fastest driver on this racetrack here today, behind the leader Beretta. So that is immense.
Remarkable, and he's doing that in traffic. Let's keep that in mind. These GT3 cars, they do rely a lot on the downforce generated by the wings and the splitter, the diffuser, all of that for their speed. And when you're running in traffic, that's going to be compromised.
Absolutely, and he's right in that zone, as I'd call it, where you're far enough back where it is just taking away a little bit of percentage of downforce. Obviously, you pick up a little bit of a draft effect down the long straightaways here as well. So probably neutralizes itself out in terms of the lap time, but Frank and there, a little bit of a bobble there coming off of Tower Corner. Give Weatherall a look, doesn't quite clear him. That's through Bishop Bend. Justin just wants to settle back into the groove here this weekend. He's got a hurt. He seemed pretty cool about it yesterday when I spoke to him about the incidents at Road America. He said, it's no big deal, kind of just shrugged his shoulders. He is a cool character, but you'd have to feel when you get into a race position like this where you got to make a move, you do second guess yourself just that little bit. But I think with someone as experienced as Ryan Dial going to be on that headset talking him through this early phase of the race, I don't think it'll take him long to get his confidence back.
A certain amount of second guessing is probably inevitable, as you point out, but it is important to have that attitude that you described from Justin, to be able to put that behind him and get back on the horse. And right now, challenging for position. Frank Gannett just left that door cracked open. Weatherall not close enough, or not enough room at the very least to make a lunge to the inside. This is the battle right now for 7th and 8th in Pro-Am, 12th and 13th overall, and that's the beauty of motorsports. Anytime you can find yourself in a fight like this one, doesn't matter what position it's for, it's still going to be fierce. It's still going to be what you show up for.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Justin's had a little off to actually lose this track position, because his lap times have been way quicker than Frank. So he suddenly found himself behind Frank Gannett here. So I'm not sure if he's had a moment here in the early phases of this race to lose that track position. But right now, he's not quite timing it right. He's kind of tripping over Frank versus just timing it and trying to make a move.
Now look. the run down to Cunningham Corner, turn 10.
Frank's doing a good job as well. He's not been intimidated here. He's continuing to hit his marks, not giving it up, and is fighting for it. However he got this track position, he doesn't want to let go of it.
Frank's been coming along. This is just year 2 for him in the GT3 ranks. Made the big step out of the GT4 Mustang to this Aston last year. And the Ian Lacey Racing team, for them too, it was a big adjustment. Sounds like they've come a long way, at least in terms of making the car feel comfortable to drive. But as you alluded to earlier, Calvin, just finding the pace commensurate with the comfort level, that's been the struggle.
Yeah, we saw Drew Stavely, his teammate, at dinner the other night, and he just said that's just been such a frustrating season. They go testing, the balance feels good. They even had Roman DeAngelis, who's a real hot shot in one of these Aston Martins here in North America, come and do a test with him, and he couldn't improve on Drew's pace and said, yeah, the car feels good to me. Everything seems to be pointing in the right direction, and you're doing the right things with the setup, but they get to a race weekend very much like the real-time effort. The balance, the feel is good, but the ultimate lap time is not quite there. So it's a real head-scratcher for Drew Stavely, as it is for Michael Cooper aboard the 43 car, the 2 pros in those Pro-Am operations.
Is that more frustrating than just having an evil handling car?
For sure, for sure. At least you can point your finger at something and say, that's why we're not quick. But when the car feels good, it just doesn't have the ultimate lap time. What do you do? I mean, what direction do you go in with the setup to try and improve? All you can do is think, well, can we peel any downforce out of it so we make it not quite as settled? But with the homologated cars, you got to maintain balance. So you can't trim out too much front downforce other than raising the car up. So you can take rear wing out, but typically all that's going to do is just upset the balance.
Top 3 in Pro-Am, slugging it out as they have all season long, not just in terms of Pro-Am running order, but Pro-Am points as well. So much at stake with this battle. We've got our eyes on here Ashton Harrison, who made the move for the lead early in this race. Around Charlie Luck, he runs second in the right Porsche, and right behind George Kurtz for Riley Motorsports, third at the moment, but so close between the top 3 in the Pro-Am class.
Today's coverage is brought to you by Pirelli, Rebellion, and VP Racing Fuels.
Top 3 in Pro-Am locked together with just over 1 hour remaining in the first of 2 races this weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Ashton Harrison leading the way, seeking to become the first female champion in an SRO America Championship in the history, which goes back over 3 decades at this stage of this great series. Has herself, along with her co-driver Mario Farnbacher, very much in a position to do just that.
Yeah, and they know that these positions here in the final 3 races of the championship season, admittedly. Oh, here comes Charlie. Big bold move down to the inside. Ashton saw him coming and took it in a little bit deeper. Probably right into the ABS there. She tried to get it turned in for turn 7. Good little battle going here.
Board with Charlie Luck running second in Pro-Am. That lunge has cost him momentum, and that brings to his back doorstep George Kurtz. Although now all 3 of them accordion back together again, just 1 second covering all 3 cars.
Well, we saw Kurtz in a similar battle with Jason Harwood a little bit earlier today in the GTA race, and he was super patient and then made a mega move to get the track position, get the win. And he's just sitting there sussing this out right now. He'd love to get the track position, give his teammate Colin Brown something to work with. Race's Edge team have been very much on it in terms of their pit stop execution this year, so you'd hate to, or you wouldn't think that they would drop the ball here today with that. So track position is king.
Talk about what a team sport this is, and that pit stop, executing it to perfection, doing the strategy right, knowing when to come in, but then doing those changes, the tire change, the refueling, the driver change without a hiccup. These might be 3 of the best teams in the business, with Racer's Edge, Wright Motorsports, and Riley running right here all together. You don't expect to see a mistake from any of those 3 operations.
No, you don't. And that's why thinking about who's going to have the edge. How did my teammate stack up against their teammate in qualifying, for example, this morning? And Farnbacher out-qualified, I think, both the Jan Halen and Colin Brown. So, you know, if she could maintain this track position, you think that Murray may be able to hang on to it, but it's going to be a tough fight here today.
Just over 11 minutes away from entering into that pit window. So much can be determined in that short amount of time, 10 minutes in the center of the race, but who executes, who avoids that costly mistake, that has made the difference so many times over the course of the year.
It really has. It's an 80-second minimum stop time. That's from pit in to pit out. As you alluded to, kind of straddles the halfway point in this race between the 40 and 50-minute mark. You can go as far as 50 minutes, but you've got to be on pit lane by that time. You don't have to have completed the stop. You climb on board here.
Battle rages on for the lead in Pro-Am. It's Ashton Harrison leading the way. Charlie Luck, who held the top spot momentarily, gave it up. First couple of laps of this race, he runs in second. We're on board with Charlie now. You can see out the back that George Kurtz is absolutely looming.
He is right there. Down about 80 miles an hour apex speed there through turn 16, and you start to ramp up. About 165 miles an hour by the time you hit that middle pedal to arrest the speed down at the Sunset Bend. And that drivetrain whir of the Porsche.
Two vastly different lines through that corner as well, and a lot of drivers will say you don't take that corner the same way 2 laps in a row very often. It's so challenging to find your way through those bumps. Ashton Harrison, though, has done it beautifully, and this is a track that this team has a lot of experience to draw upon at. You think about a Florida-based team, the fact that they ran in the 12-hour here earlier this year in conjunction with Wayne Taylor Racing. Ashton Harrison, part of that driver lineup, and let's learn more about her race. Amanda, what are you finding out?
I found out this morning when discussing the heat with drivers that this team actually installed a cool suit system inside the car after New Orleans when the temperatures internally reached 160 degrees inside of that cockpit. I was talking to Mario about that just and what that means when it comes to pit stops. And he said it does make it a lot more tricky when exchanging the drivers. So as we get closer to that window, you talk about the efficiency needed in pit stops. Now that they're using that cool suit system here this weekend, we'll keep an eye on what happens during this driver change.
Really good point. It does add an extra level of complexity to that pit stop. Another hose that needs to be disconnected and reconnected.
You could see the capillaries where that camera shot we had in pit lane was actually Ashton's teammate, I believe, Mario Farnbacher. Back when I raced, we used to have cool suits, but it was like a plastic coat you put on. And the problem was if it failed, you literally were just baking in this plastic coat. Now,
oh!
Charlie spins it there.
That was right in front of George Kurtz, who's able to continue on, but that cost him time. It certainly cost Charlie a great deal of time. You can see the right team scrambling up on top of their box. Oh, Charlie will be ruining that one. Let's take a look at it.
Just got that right front over the curb there. It looked like it just hooked him a little bit. So losing a little bit of downforce, as you alluded to earlier, Ryan, with these GT3 cars. They're relying on getting the clean air to the front end. So lost a bit of downforce, just took that right over the curb a little bit. And that was enough to turn him around, it looked like.
Doesn't take much. He's right back on it, and he needs to be, because he's got Scott Smithson there, who has been turning his fastest laps of the race the last couple times by. Smithson 4th in Pro-Am and getting more and more comfortable as the race goes on. Just did a 2:04 flat, again resetting his personal best. Jeff Burton behind him also setting his personal best. So the mid-pack starting to find a bit of pace here as we approach the pit window. And with that said, Charlie Luck won't be afforded much time to try and recover from that mistake.
No, and really a testimony to these Pirelli tires that this deep into the run, we talk about Sebring not being a high tire degradation racetrack, but nonetheless, in these heating conditions, yes, the fuel load is burning off a little bit, the cars get a little bit lighter and should perform a little bit better because of that, but nonetheless, we've seen that a lot this year. and just great product that they're delivering these drivers and teams.
Beretta continues to lead by nearly 8 seconds over Michael Dinan. Dinan has Goikhberg behind him. That's the battle we're looking at here. Dinan in the BMW, Goikhberg in the Lamborghini, and Manny Franco fighting on Gamely right behind. He's been right there, nearly matching the 2 cars in front of him for race pace for the bulk of his stint, which, keep in mind, this is his first stint of GT3 racing.
Amazing. He's only 3 seconds out of running second overall in this race.
And that car will start from overall pole tomorrow. Alessandro Balzan accomplished that feat earlier today, and he is going to be taking control of this car here. And I suspect about 5 minutes and 49 seconds, or about as close to that as this team can manage. With an ace like Alessandro up on the pit box, they're not going to waste any time when that pit window comes open.
Yeah, I think in 3 laps he's going to be diving in, particularly with the neck situation that he's dealing with. He's got a masseuse who's working on him every time he gets out of the race car, so he'll want to be as fresh as he can possibly be for the second race of the weekend and let Balzan cover the brunt of the work here this weekend.
He'll deserve that massage after a phenomenal stint here to get things started in his first ever GT3 race. Manny Franco running a very strong P4, chasing Misha Goikhberg, who in turn is trying to run down Michael Dinan for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the overall as well as the pro standings. 54 minutes to go here at Sebring.
Today's coverage is brought to you by ASUS Republic of Gamers, Motul, Stay Frosty, and 511.
Michele Beretta continues to show the way. The lead is now over 9 seconds. Back to Michael Dinan, who continues his fight with Misha Goikhberg, but utter domination. And this is what we had come to expect from K-Pax Racing, and this car in particular, until the past few weekends, when mysteriously, to us as well as to them, they lost some of that pace that we saw early in the season. They seem to have found it again here in Sebring.
Yeah, they do, and that's a bit of a mystery to me. It's been quite shocking that they've had to deal with this inconsistency with the performance of that car over the last 12 months, really. They haven't been able to put their finger on it, and you've got some of the best minds in the business working on that. So Andrea and Michele said to us this weekend it was just impossible to drive that car quickly at Road America. They've certainly got it in a sweet zone here this weekend, but it's going to get a little bit tougher. If there's a compression, there's some really fast pros going to be jumping on board these cars here pretty shortly. I mean, you'd have to say that Beretta of the cars who are doing the opening stints has got the credentials and has got the pace to do what he's doing right now in terms of leading this race, but it'll turn things around a little bit. Despite Caldarelli being super fast, there's some other really quick pedalers out there as well.
Certainly so. Goikhberg, a quick pedaler in his own right. He has closed that gap. He has caught Michael Dinan. Couldn't quite find the gap to attack him this time into the hairpin, but this is as close as Goikhberg has been since the start of this race. By the way, based on where the leaders crossed the start-finish line, that last time around, and based on the lap times that they're running, it looks like it's likely going to be 2 laps or a lap and a half from here before the front runners will get a chance to make the call to pit lane. The rule is no longer, though, that the leader has to have the first shot at it, so those a little deeper in the field, they might get a chance to play that strategy card. That could be something to keep an eye on.
Could be huge, particularly if there was any incident on the racetrack right at that point where you're allowed to dive in 1 lap earlier than the competition.
Close eye on that clock as it relates to these two. That pit window opens just past the 50-minute to go mark. Michael Dinan, he's got his hands full with Misha Goikhberg. Michael Dinan leading Misha Goikhberg down the Ullman Straight, headed towards turn 17. That is the fight for 2nd overall. Dinan has it. Goikhberg has been trying to pry it out of his grasp, for the past several laps, but to this point, he's had no luck in doing so. They come around with 51 minutes still on the clock. They're running laps just over 2 minutes in length. So the pit window for these leaders at least will be open the next time by.
Yeah, and I think also for Beretta, I'm not sure they're going to take it necessarily, but I think Beretta could get to the pit entry as the 50 minutes is just passed. Or 50 minutes to go, should I say, 40 minutes in.
Here is Michele Beretta leading overall, and the last few laps he has been able to extend that margin. Looks like someone was off. DXD Team Mercedes, maybe. David Askew, I believe. Let's see if we can see what happened to him.
Just coming on the back straight away there. That's Le Mans corner, turn 16. Hopefully not too much damage to that splitter, which will affect the car's performance for when Dirk Müller takes over.
Askew had been running 6th in Pro-Am, 11th overall. Not clear if that's going to cost him any positions. Don't think so.
Great drive here by Goikberg. Closing in on Dynan here later in the opening stint. Keeping the pressure on. Okay, that's just giving Jordan Pepper an opportunity to perform his magic when he jumps behind the wheel of this number 3 car. You're going to have to feel that Goldberg will be in, I would think, early.
Report from Amanda was that a number of teams have started to lay out those tires, and that definitely tells you something. That means they're out of the tire ovens. You're not going to do that unless you think the pit stop is imminent. Pit window opens. Beretta will have a shot at it if he wants to take it. Running out in front all by his lonesome. Does not look like, oh yes he does. K-Pax does make the call to bring the overall leader into the pit lane with a 10.7 second margin. Michele Beretta set to turn that car over to Andrea Caldarelli. Dynan comes in, Goikberg comes in, Franco comes in too. And staying out is the AM class leader, Charlie Scardina, and he will take the overall race lead with 49 minutes to go.
That's cool, and expect him to stay out there for a little bit. He's got tremendous pace, so they'll try and take advantage of that. Obviously running the risk of an incident, which will slow your progress on the racetrack. Another great performance by the Triazzi team.
Memorably made their debut in GT3 racing here in this event 1 year ago. Pit stops underway for Pirelli tires. VP Racing fuel into these cars as well as the driver change. 80 seconds is the minimum time that must be spent from pit in to pit out, including the service, with a 1 second joker available in one of the 2 races this weekend at the team's discretion.
And you would expect Caldarelli to be able to jump out here and maintain the lead with just a smooth pit stop. There he goes, but it's going to be really tight between releasing that number 3 car and the Dynan. Number 96 will now be handled by Robbie Foley. There he goes, I believe. And there goes Alessandro Balzan.
Beretta to Caldarelli, 81 seconds. Dynan heads out. That was a good one. Right at the 80-second threshold. Same for Goikberg. This is interesting. This is the top 2 in Pro-Am. They came in nose to tail. They leave nose to tail. And now it's down to Mario Farnbacher to fight it out with Colin Brown for what appears to be the honors in the Pro-Am class.
This is going to be a great battle right here. Robbie Foley's been really shown some great form this summer. Runs a couple of championships with an identical car, essentially. So he's finding his feet. Balzan, you can see in the backdrop there. They lost a little bit in that pit stop exchange, to be expected, you would think, on their debut in this form of competition. Lost about a second to the rest of the pack.
How about this? Both the top 2 in Pro-Am elected to use that joker today. They don't have it in their back pocket for tomorrow. So that's Racer's Edge and this team, Riley Motorsports. They left just within that window. Their time on pit lane was just a couple tenths of a second apart from one another, so nearly equal between those 2 excellent teams.
Little moment there for Colin Brown, getting on the brakes there down into turn 7. Just had to jump out of the brake pedal a little bit, ran a little bit wide and cost him a couple of car lengths compared to Farnbacher there.
AM-class car into the pits. Charlie Scardina, after leading overall, will be handing it over to his brother-in-law, Onofrio Triarsi. Amanda telling us, by the way, that the pit exit situation between these two was very, very close. Mario just barely was released ahead of Colin and was able to preserve that advantage.
They were going for it, as you mentioned, both of them using up their jokers. They've got to be careful tomorrow that they don't run afoul of that. There's a ton of time coming down pit lane here. I think it's about a 35-second delta here. It's a long, long pit lane compared to being flat out down the front stretch. It'll be a tough afternoon for Colin Brown here. A, to catch Mario Farnbacher and then put the pressure on. But it did look like George's car was working a little bit better than maybe Ashton's late in that stint.
Something to keep an eye on. We'll see if that carries over to the second driver in these lineups. No change at the very front. K-Pax Racing, perfect execution. Only change here is that Andrea Caldarelli is now the man wheeling the car. He is en route to clinching his second consecutive North American Championship within the SRO organization. He loves his racing over here. Loves the tracks, loves the challenge, and he and this K-Pax Racing team, they've become very tight. Represented the team very well on the international stage at Spa earlier in the summer.
Yeah, they really did, put in a tremendous performance over there. And for Caldarelli, I don't think it's feasible for him to clinch the championship here today, but I think the way they're running this weekend and the pace that they have, barring some mishaps, he should clinch it tomorrow night and really take all of the pressure off going into the Indy 8 hour. You don't have to worry about a championship or conserving or being conservative. Just go for the win.
The lineup we're hearing they're going to have Marco Mappelli joining Caldarelli and Beretta in that car. Sounds like Frank Pereira set to join the team in the sister car. Lamborghini factory ace. Lamborghini putting a lot of effort into its Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli program in 2022.
Looks like Foley here has maintained that gap on Pepper, so certainly in the early phase of this stanza, he's been a match. Pepper, so much ability, so much pace. K-Pax squad absolutely love it.
Why not? Came up through the ranks, earned a spot as one of the Bentley boys. Jordan Pepper. Oh man, he caught a big bump that time. That had to be all hands and elbows inside that race car. Somehow he made the save, but was identified by Bentley as a phenomenal driver, phenomenal talent. K-Pax, of course, had that connection with Bentley, ran Jordan in one of their cars. And when they made the switch over to Lamborghini, they brought him along as effectively a K-Pax team driver. We've seen them do that in the past with drivers like Alvaro Parent, for instance, who was so long associated with McLaren, but then when K-Pax made the switch from McLaren to Bentley, they wanted to bring him along. Similar story here for Jordan, and he has repaid them hand over fist. He has been just phenomenal.
Yeah, and I like the way they do that, because you then really have a backbone to your team. You're not reliant on manufacturers and potentially switching. You've got some continuity that way. If they ever chose to leave Lamborghini, for example, and go with a different manufacturer, they've got Jordan under their wing versus just being supplied as a factory driver. So they love the resources that Lamborghini provide and the support. Caldarelli and Beretta are Lamborghini supported drivers. So I think it's a nice mix. I think it's a nice dynamic that they've established there.
Race Vision powered by our friends at AWS. Top speeds overall in this race today, and to the surprise of no one who's been paying attention this season, Michael Dinan in the BMW has top honors, 159.6 miles per hour. Robbie Foley, the teammate, hasn't quite reached those same peaks just yet. We'll see what happens when the fuel level burns off, but still 157.8. Then you get to the Ferrari, the Aston, the Acura. It's great to see 4 different brands in the top 5.
Yeah, all very, very close. Great job by the technical department in terms of establishing the balance of performance tables to keep these manufacturers so close together.
It's a thankless job. No one's ever totally happy with balance of performance. That would be a first. But you look at the way things run right here with Foley in a BMW, front engine, distinctly different look to that M4 compared to the mid-engine Lamborghini, and they're running nearly identical times, similar to what we saw in the opening stint.
Yeah, did look like Pepper and Balzan were trimming about a couple of tenths out of Foley's gap there, so Balzan's not coming fast enough to really be a threat, I don't think, unless just later in the run the Ferrari has a bit more pace, less tire degradation potentially. That pit stop exchange, even though it was just over a second difference between these two cars we're looking at right here, and the Conquest pit stop has certainly given them a little bit of breathing room over the rapid Italian sitting behind the wheel of that number 34 Conquest Racing Ferrari 488.
Well, now with the pros behind the wheel in the Pro-Am cars, here we are a couple laps into this stint, and what we're seeing is personal best laps nearly across the board of the cars still on track. There's 13 of them. 9 had their personal best lap that last time by. Here's Harrison held up a little bit, excuse me, that's Farnbacher, held up a little bit by traffic. That's the AM class leader from Triarsi Competizione, Onofrio Triarsi driving right now, and that has cost Mario Farnbacher in a big way. Colin Brown, he knows this could be the shot. He's closing in.
Yeah, he can smell blood right now. He's got to get right on the tail of Mario, try and take advantage of this situation, and Mario's going to be super frustrated. Ton of experience, two-time champion in North America with GT3 cars, so he knows how to get the job done, but he's being frustrated by that Ferrari in front of him. Not a position in class, but Triarsi doesn't want to give it up.
With no one to race in class here this weekend for the Triarsi guys of Onofrio Triarsi and Charlie Scardina, I have to think that where they finish overall is really what they're here to do, right? That's the one thing they have to compare themselves to at this point, and I'm sure they don't want to interfere with the battle for the championship in Pro-Am, the battle for the lead here in Pro-Am, but still, you want to fight, you want to race.
You do. Oh, and he gets wide. He gets wide, tried to close the gap there that was being established by Mario, and just gets out in the gray a little bit. Didn't get the car loaded on turn-in, and then it kind of goes into no man's land. Just had to give it up. He did a nice job of adjusting and not just driving it off the road.
That was a gift for Colin Brown. He got through there much more clean than Mario Farnbacher did. Mario lost a ton of time over the last lap or so, stuck behind that Ferrari, but he's clear of it now, and he's got the head down, the bit between his teeth. Mario Farnbacher a little bit deep into the hairpin.
I was watching from the hotel yesterday at that last session, and a lot of the drivers choose to actually run a little bit deeper in there. So rather than just hitting the apex and then straight lining off, they continue to break deeper into that corner. So there's two different approaches there through turn 7.
Made it work for him here this time at least. But Colin Brown, he is right there. And again, we think this car, this Mercedes, is going to be a little bit stronger over the course of the full run, at least based on what we saw back in the opening stint when George Kurtz was driving that car. This is first and second in the Pro-Am class, 5th and 6th. Overall, Acura leading Mercedes with 38 minutes to go here at Sebring. Andrea Caldarelli showing the way. It is a 12.5-second lead over Robbie Foley. This is Caldarelli here for K-Pax, starting his 24th circuit of the track here at Sebring. Foley, though, just a half a second lead over Jordan Pepper, and slowly but surely, Alessandro Balzan in the team making its debut in the championship this weekend. Conquest Racing Ferrari. Balzan closing down that gap. He's now within 2 seconds of that fight for second.
This is really close, though. Pepper's in attack range right here. Foley's going to be really on his toes here to watch to see if Jordan Pepper makes a big attack move down to the inside.
In some respects, that hairpin, it's a great passing zone, long brake zone, right into a tight corner, but it's really tight at apex and at exit, and it takes some cooperation to get through cleanly.
It's really bumpy too, so if you suddenly dive it down on the inside, there's no rubber down there, so the grip level isn't the same. And if the car starts to skip over the bumps a little bit, you can suddenly get into the ABS, and that takes away some of the driver's ability to really steer the car. It just kind of numbs the front end a little bit if you're into it too hard.
36 minutes to go, still a lot to play for here. Keep in mind, Pepper is trying to stay in the conversation for the Pro Class Championship. He started as Caldarelli's teammate the first couple of races of the season in Sonoma. They were split since then, and the edge, as he goes off there, has by and large been to Caldarelli's favor. Pepper trying to keep him honest, at least to make it interesting going into the final race.
Yeah, he knows that Caldarelli's well down the road, so I think he knows that the championship is essentially Andrea's, but they want to keep the fight going as long as they possibly can.
Back to the Pro-Am battle we go. Farnbacher with a bit more breathing room this time. Colin Brown, though, still within a second of Farnbacher's pace, and giving Ofrio Triarsi credit, he got past, but he's been hanging with them basically on the same pace as these two, the top two in Pro-Am. I'm curious what next year's going to look like for these Triarsi guys. They have been so strong and getting better as the year has gone along and continues at Sebring. Battle for the lead in Pro-Am. Mario Farnbacher and Colin Brown, top two in class. They run 5th and 6th overall. Not much to separate these two, the Acura and the Mercedes.
No, both these drivers are absolutely right on edge here, trying to wring every ounce of speed out of their respective cars. I just knew that track position was going to be so critical. That's why they both went for the jokers on their pit stop exchange, to try and gain that track position. But they all both executed at the same level, and that was why it's so important for Ashton to get that lead early in the race and maintain it. I think she was vulnerable there, but she did a really solid job of just hanging on to that position. I love how feisty she is. I love the confidence that she displays so early in her career.
Her seat time in this car, yes, it's her first season racing a GT3 car, first full season, but she did do a ton of testing in that car last year as part of the HPD GT3 Academy, and just a remarkable job getting up to speed this year, running at the front more often than not, and has herself in a position, along with her co-driver Mario Farnbacher, to challenge for a championship. Debut weekend in GT3 racing for Manny Franco. He put in a great first stint, and Amanda has found him.
Well, Ryan, I've seen some smiles out of him already and a couple fist bumps from his team when he got out of the car. And Manny, how will you summarize your first stint in the Fanatec GT Series?
Honestly, it couldn't have gone better. For me personally, I was really happy with the performance that I made. I was exhausted coming out, but I'm blown away by myself. I was happy with it. So
I will pass on the note. The guys in the booth said that the massage you will have today has been well earned. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That smile, that laugh, it says it all. He's loving his racing. Great to have his infectious personality within the paddock. Missed having him after he stepped out of the car with that crash that Amanda talked about earlier. He did some of the GT4 races earlier this season. But when this showed up, when this entry showed up on the entry list, I think both of us stopped and took note, knowing how good he's been in a Ferrari Challenge car the past couple years.
Yeah, knowing how good his teammate Baldan is behind the wheel, and the skill of expertise of that operation led by Eric Bachelard. So, and Balzan is chipping away. It's just half a tenth there, a tenth there, but he is chipping away at that gap for a potential podium run here this afternoon. He is not giving up on a debut podium for that team.
How cool would that be? And keep in mind, earlier today, after qualifying, they thought they were going to be in the Pro-Am class. This change only happened shortly before the start of the race today. So had that change not happened, they would have a Pro-Am class win basically locked down. I mean, the gap back to Farnbacher is, what, 17 seconds?
Yeah.
So put that in context. A team that was borderline Pro-Am, they weren't quite sure what to do with them, based on really a limited resume on Manny's side to draw from in terms of trying to figure out where this entry should be, what class it should be in, and they have proven that they belong in the pro ranks very quickly.
Well, just says fastest lap of the race in 2:04. That's pretty remarkable. So all three here, this battle for the podium spots is really intense. Philly's done a mega job aboard that Turner Motorsports BMW. Is not really shown a chink in his armor in terms of defending there from Pepper. Pepper's been all over the place in terms of using every inch of the road and a little bit more at times, trying to squeeze the gap down a little bit tighter.
Still pushing. Andrea Caldarelli. The lead is 14.8 seconds over Robbie Foley. Lamborghini K-Pax Racing in control. Just over 30 minutes to go, approaching 2/3 of the way through this race. There was that initial challenge by Michael Dinan on Michele Beretta right at the drop of the green flag into turn 1, but since then it has been all K-Pax Racing, and this car in particular has been the dominant performer of the day. Andrea Caldarelli, 14.8 seconds over Robbie Foley. You can see the gap back from Foley to Jordan Pepper, and right there, Alessandro Balzan, just 1.5 seconds behind Pepper.
Yeah, it's literally about 1/10 of a second per lap, but is he going to run out of time at that pace? I mean, all of these drivers just so on it in terms of executing their lap time, lap after lap. You don't see that up and down, that roller coaster ride when you're looking at the lap time comparison. Super, super consistent. Top pros at the top of the game.
In terms of Sebring experience of this trio, you'd have to think the edge goes to Balzan, a former class winner in the 12 hours.
Yeah, certainly Robbie's been here in recent years, but certainly, yeah, when you go back in history, 3-time GT3 champion here on North American soil, Balzan, including the debut victory for that Ferrari here back in 2016. And his teammate that he won a couple of championships with, Christina Nielsen, we're going to see her in action with the Racer's Edge team for the Indy 8 Hours in a couple of weeks.
How exciting is that? Christina, multi-time GT3 champion in North America. She'll be slotting in alongside Farnbacher and Harrison. Welcome addition to the grid. And a couple announcements of some of the teams that will be taking part.
Ooh, Pepper's close that time.
Yes, he was, and he still is for that matter. Through Big Bend, turn number 6, nipping at the heels of the BMW, but this is the strength of that BMW, that straight line speed. We saw it on Race Vision, powered by AWS. Seemingly always able to build just big enough of a gap where you can enter the braking zone without being too nervous.
Yeah, but Foley's, he knows he's there. It's hard to miss that bright green car when it's looming up in that rear view facing camera.
And you know Jordan Pepper's not going to be shy. We've seen him make some bold passes over the course of this season. If there's a chance, he will go for it. 29 minutes to go. The fight for second continues. Absolutely nothing to separate Robbie Foley and Jordan Pepper. The last couple of laps running nearly identical lap times. Just half a second between the two of them at the line. Foley in the Turner BMW and Pepper in the K-Pax Lamborghini with Alessandro Balzan lurking in the background.
Yeah, he's right there, and that's going to change the complexion of this race for Jordan Pepper in a heartbeat as soon as he gets right with them. He keeps chipping away at it. I'd say another 5 laps at the most. He's going to be right there in the pace that he's displaying at the moment. So this may force Jordan Pepper. If he gets close to Foley again, he may feel he's got to go for it. Otherwise, he's going to potentially lose a podium position here this afternoon with Balzan being so quick and so close.
A little bit wider through the center of turn 17. That Lamborghini able to hug the inside. Drivers trying to avoid the worst of the bumps. It's almost impossible, though, through that corner. It's about as rough a patch of concrete as you're going to find anywhere on the planet. Andrea Caldarelli, CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. Set earlier in the race, a 2-minute 4:79 lap time, which I believe was under the previous GT3 track record that Patrick Long had held.
This is a bit more what we expected for the year. This is a really strong performance here this weekend. And they've found it. Whatever was missing, they have found it in terms of the setup of this race car. I mean, as quick as the 3 chases are in terms of Foley, Pepper, Balzan, Caldarelli has been consistently about half a second clear of those guys and has stretched that gap. I think when he got back out, he's, 11 seconds up. After the pit stop exchange, he stretched it up to 16-second lead right now.
Part of that has to do, I suspect, with the fact that Foley is playing defense here. He can't fully no pun intended, focus on turning fast lap times. He can't leave himself exposed, as he knows Jordan Pepper is there and ready to lunge should the opportunity strike.
So you're saying he's fully focused.
He might be.
I'll tell you what, Pepper's going to be fully focused in a minute because Balzan is getting ever closer.
Well, does that put more emphasis now on making a move sooner rather than later for Pepper? Yeah, you see 26 minutes on the clock. That's an eternity in a race like this. But on the other hand, now is the time to strike when you don't have Balzan trying to make a move of his own.
Yeah, that's what I was saying a couple of laps ago. It's going to force Pepper, if he sees a crack, he's going to go for it because he knows otherwise he's going to be vulnerable to losing that final podium spot. With the pace that Balzan is displaying, he can see him getting closer. His team will be telling him, you know, Balzan 10th quicker, 2/10 quicker, half a tenth quicker. And now he's right in range.
It was not a perfectly smooth run through 17. That time for Pepper looked like he had quite a bit of opposite lock dialed into that machine as he goes bouncing through the bumps there at turn 1 as well. That has brought Balzan closer at the line. Let's look. It was Foley, 6/10 back to Pepper, 5/10 from him back to Balzan. They continue their scrap, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in Pro, and behind them you find this duel, which also has not let up. It had been a 3-way fight in Pro-Am between Racer's Edge and the Acura, Riley in the Mercedes, and Wright Motorsports with the Porsche. But we saw the little miscue there from Charlie Luck, his spin, and Jan Halen, as quick as he has not been able to make any kind of inroads, at least nothing meaningful, trying to reinsert himself into the picture for the fight for the top 2 spots.
No. I'll tell you what, I think Farnbacher may be vulnerable. I think Colin Brown's car, as we saw with George Kurtz when he was aboard the CrowdStrike entry earlier in this race, may have a little bit more pace. I think Farnbacher's going to really earn this 3rd consecutive Pro-Am victory here today. He's going to keep a hold of it.
On board with Jan Halen, running 3rd in Pro-Am, 8th overall, and that is the AM-Class car of Onofrio Triarci in front of him. Running pretty good lap times. It's not like it's going to be that easy for Halen to clear him. Keep in mind the class differences here. It's all about driver experience. It's not about machinery. Everything BOP'd the same across the board. So it's GT3 on GT3 here.
It really is. And I tell you what, that's championship. If Colin Brown could get around Farnbacher, it's going to make it super tight between those top 3. Going into tomorrow. It's going to be tight anyways, the way they're running all 3 cars in the top 3, but if 04 can get in front of this 93 machine, it would make it even tighter.
It's hard to imagine it being any closer than it was coming into today with the top 3 teams separated by just 4 points. That's the way it's been all season long. No one has been able to seize control of this Pro-Am class.
Colin knows it. He knows how important this potential position change is. This could almost be a championship decider here. You never know what's going to happen in Indy, but this is a big, big point in this championship season.
The pressure has been immense ever since Mario Farnbacher took control of this car. Ashton Harrison, for her part, also was under duress for the lion's share of her stint. Did a great job to get that car to the lead. Let's not forget that. That really was the move when she made it around Charlie Luck to take the lead of the class. That's what's put them in this position.
Yeah, well, she got the jump on George on the opening lap to move up from position 3 on the grid to get 2nd in class, and then got that move around Charlie. So, yeah, she certainly has played her part. She has done all season long. The Balzan here, he's dropped back a little bit.
Good point. His last lap was about 3/10 off what the 2 guys in front of him were doing. He'd be leaning a little too hard on those Pirellis in his bid to catch up.
Super consistent run to this point, so let's see if he has lost the handle on the car a little bit.
Keep an eye on his lap times here as we approach the final 20 minutes of the 3rd to last race of the season. Andrea Caldarelli leading by 17 seconds, but Foley and Pepper continue to battle it out for 2nd.
Today's coverage is brought to you by Acura, BMW M, and and Ferrari.
Jordan Pepper continuing his pursuit of Robbie Foley. He closes in through Christensen Bend. That green Lamborghini looking ominous behind the BMW. He doesn't have to worry about Balzan behind him this time. He's close. He's in the slipstream. This is a flat-out turn 6 into the braking zone for the hairpin. Can he make a lunge?
He's not quite close enough. He needs to gain about another half car length to even think about it. BMW looks strong into that brake zone as well. The Lamborghini cuts through the real tight, twisty stuff a little bit more effectively than the BMW, perhaps, but Foley so far hasn't blinked. Has Jordan got a surprise up his sleeve, or he thinks Foley may be vulnerable into one of these brake zones?
Well, my question is, will he need a surprise? Because it appears, and based on what we saw from Race Vision earlier, straight line edge goes to the BMW. So maybe does that take away some of the more conventional passing zones? Do you have to be a bit more creative?
Yeah, I think you do. I think you just need to nail together a really good lap. Maybe Foley has a slight, when I'm talking about this, I mean maybe find a 10th and Foley to lose a 10th. And just by being that little bit closer, maybe get a bit more of a slingshot and just surprise Robbie. Get it down to the inside and then just hold it there and force him out across some of these bumps maybe.
In some respects, it is remarkable. We're talking about Robbie Foley in this way, and it's become par for the course for him. It wasn't that long ago, and he was the student learning at the feet of the master, Bill Oberlin, and then a couple of years ago, he burst onto the scene coaching Michael Dinan in the GT4 ranks. They had all that success, won those races, won those championships, and moved their way to GT3. And we've seen Robbie go head-to-head with his sensei, Bill Oberlin, a couple of times this year and get the better of the savvy veteran.
He's really stepped it up. He's done it in a nice way, a very gradual way. He's always been quick, but now he's really displaying great pace there. He can run with these top pros. Heads up. Balzan, he did one really bad lap there, but now he seems to be back on and closing in on these guys again. So I'm not sure if he just had a moment that he had a control or had a slight off that we didn't quite catch on camera.
Tell you what, Pepper is close as ever, and he's going to make an attempt here. A late move on the brakes, but he's not close enough. Foley closes the door on him with 19 minutes to go. Robbie Foley able to hang on to that second spot, but Pepper is closing in lap after lap. That was as close as he's been yet. Jordan Pepper, as racy as he's been all day long, took that lunge to the inside of Robbie Foley. Foley closed the door on him into the braking zone for the hairpin and holds the second spot, but it looks tenuous, his grip on the runner-up position.
It does, but Robbie's looked solid. I mean, he really hasn't been fazed by this. Certainly Jordan has made his presence known, tucked his nose down to the inside, and you may think, you know what, I'm going to out-brake this guy into the next corner, but then just the sensors kick in. He can't take it any deeper than he's already going, so there's nothing you can do about that, other than just drive over the top of the guy and take him out.
Don't expect that from either of these two drivers. Robbie Foley keeping the South African Jordan Pepper at bay.
Balzan has definitely regrouped here. He's back into his rhythm, trimming those few tenths away. The K-Pack squad looks on. Steve, the engineer, they're giving the numbers to the drivers.
Maybe a little more breathing room through one this time for Foley. Pepper in hot pursuit. This is where he's been strong relative to the BMW through this part where it tightens up. Turns 3, 4, 5, and that run to turn 7, the hairpin.
Looks like the BMW has to be driven on a very, what I'd call a classic line. Like if you had a piece of paper and you're just drawing the line around the racetrack trying to teach a student, he's having to put that car there. Looks like Pepper can be a little bit more cut and thrust with his line and his approach into some of these corners.
Foley feeling that pressure, guarding the inside. This time Pepper a little bit further back. No chance to make a lunge this time. All of this taking place 20 seconds behind the race leader, Andrea Caldarelli, who has been in firm control ever since he took over, thanks in part to a phenomenal opening stint by his teammate, Michele Beretta.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, my memory's not the best, but I mean, obviously you had Jordan Pepper and Caldarelli together, but since Beretta and Caldarelli have been teamed up, this has maybe been one of their most dominant performances of the season, which comes at a bit of a surprise on the back of a drought for them where they haven't won in 4 races.
Absolutely agreed, and just flexing that muscle right now. Caldarelli just turned a lap that was about a 1/10 of a second away from the race's fastest. So he's still pushing, and there's still pace in that Lamborghini and on those Pirellis.
These three, there's nothing between them. I mean, every sector they're within half a tenth of one another. Very evenly matched.
Same can be said in Pro-Am. It's been a half a second or thereabouts at the line every lap this entire stint between Farnbacher and Brown. That's the brain trust for Turner. Will Turner in the middle.
Celebrated his birthday here yesterday. Jay O'Connell on the headset, the engineer.
Just 15 minutes to go. The pressure ramping up as time runs out. Jordan Pepper can feel the urgency creeping in.
This is close. This is as close as he's been. Robbie may have to think about defending the line a little bit.
Let's watch the BMW. Does he guard the inside? Yes, he does. Pepper will at least poke half a nose to the inside.
Seems like through the acceleration there, through Big Bend, turn 6, BMW just stretches enough to give Robbie the comfort factor before he gets to the brake zone.
Well, let's say that that part of the track is covered off then. Where else can Jordan Pepper strike?
Well, there's not a ton of traffic out here, so he's got to make it happen by himself. You see Foley there runs really wide through there, but just very flowing lines, as you can see, that Robbie's utilizing here. But he's keeping the momentum by doing that. He's not sort of like hard braking, tight turning approach to any of these corners, so it makes it really tough. I mean, Jordan will think, oh, I've got an opportunity, but Robbie's just flowing the speed through the entry of these corners. I don't see a weak spot. I mean, I think it's just going to be a high-risk maneuver unless Robbie makes a mistake, and he hasn't made one yet.
We are transfixed on these battles for the lead. I did just notice this car on timing and scoring shown as in the pit lane. This is Ryan Dial. This is the car that's supposed to start on the outside of the front row tomorrow. It's not been a great day for Ryan or Justin in race 1 of the weekend, but we know the car had pace this morning in qualifying. Really
Ryan's
curious.
been quick here today. He's ran a 2-minute 0.9, so that's quicker than both Foley and Pepper have run here today, and only marginally off what Balzana's run.
Now, disappointing that pace is not equated to a result here today, but that could be a car to keep an eye on tomorrow.
Oh, for sure.
Don Halen still trying to recover. Charlie Luck had the spin while he was fighting with Ashton Harrison as well as George Kurtz for the podium positions in Pro-Am. And Halen's not been able to recover completely from that, but he does have the fastest speed through turn 1. We just were on board with him through there. Nearly 110 miles an hour through a high-speed, blind, bumpy corner, turn number 1.
Yeah.
Impressive commitment from Halen, Lewis, Triarci, Caldarelli, Pepper, the rest of the top 5 on our Race Vision powered by AWS through turn 1. Looking in here on the right Motorsports driver, 3rd in Pro-Am, or what might have been if not for that spin. They were very much there at the front of the order. Curious to see what tomorrow holds for them. But right now, Jan Halen running solidly in the 3rd spot, 7th overall.
Today's coverage is brought to you by Lamborghini, Lexus, and Mercedes AMG.
Alessandro Balzan has caught Foley, and Pepper. So now it is well and truly a three-way fight for second, third, and fourth, overall and in the pro class. This is good news for Foley from the perspective of now he doesn't have the full focus of Jordan Pepper behind him. Pepper has to think now about where Balzan is placing his car before he can go on an attack himself.
Yeah, and I think Foley would really love for Balzan to get right on the tail of that Lamborghini, because that will really affect the ability for Pepper to make a move. But he is really tight through there. That Lamborghini is really quick through this little sector here, 3 through 5. Just cuts through the corner a little bit more effectively than the BMW, but Robbie really focuses, I think, on just getting good power and traction off turn 5 to get that leap down this flat out stretch down towards the hairpin.
He's done just enough. You can hear the ABS kicking in. Not sure who that came from.
That might have been Jordan.
All three of these drivers, though, pushing their cars to the very limit. Checking their lap times. Foley the last time by a 2:02.1. Balzan a 2:02 flat. Pepper somewhere in the middle. Yeah, remarkable how tight these three have been.
At the same time, Caldarelli is doing his thing up front, 5, 6, 7 tenths a lap faster. So that really sets up nicely for tomorrow. We got Ferrari front row. Caldarelli going to do some magic from maybe just behind them.
He's been in a class of his own today. Same can be said for his co-driver, Michele Beretta, who helped him establish this lead in the opening stint. Caldarelli has only solidified it since he hopped in that car. These three, though, running nearly identical lap times. Three different manufacturers represented with BMW, Lamborghini, and Ferrari. It's what you love to see in sports car racing. And it's Lamborghini that leads the way. Caldarelli has an advantage that is crept over 20 seconds with less than 10 minutes to go. The lead for Caldarelli, 22.3 seconds over Robbie Foley, who continues to fend off the challenges from Jordan Pepper. Alessandro Balzan sits fourth. Then you find the fight for the Pro-Am lead. Mario Farnbacher, just 0.2 of a second at the line, the advantage over Colin Brown. Colin getting stronger as the run has progressed. Really, really interesting stuff shaping up in both Pro and Pro-Am.
Yeah, in that position in Pro-Am. Oh, Pepper looks to the inside, takes it in a little bit deeper. Foley just seems to be strong enough in that brake zone, Ryan, to not really have to worry about it too much.
This new BMW M4 GT3 platform has been tested all season long. No bigger test in terms of a racetrack than this one here at Sebring.
A ton of guys didn't test it like the Bimmerworld team did, so you'd have to think about the performance we're seeing from this 96 squad. What could Oberlin and Chandler Hull have done here this weekend if they hadn't had all the drama with the electronics and then the crash at the start of this race here today?
Yeah, it's a great question. We lost that car right at the very start of the race. Aaron Vogel also involved in that incident coming to the initial green flag. Those two cars turned a combined 2 laps before their day was done.
Look at Jan Halen. He is catching these guys. This is huge in the championship. If there's any shake-up amongst these top three, right now, Farnbacher and Ashton Harrison would leap to the top with, I believe, an 8-point gap over Halen and Luck and a 9-point gap over Colin Brown and George Kurtz. So any switch of positions right here will turn that on its head.
Yeah, great catch. Halen was a full 0.7 of a second quicker the last time by. We go on board with the Belgian from Wright Motorsports down the Oldman Straight.
Love that brake zone in there. That's the fun part, and it gets really sketchy through here. He is on the attack. Porsche is hooked up right now, late in the going.
That last time, cut the deficit to Brown down under 1 second. Ran a 2:01.6 compared to a 2:03 or 2:02.3 for Brown. So 0.7 of a second clear. We've got a three-way battle shaping up in Pro-Am. How about this one in Pro? I don't know where to look. Two great fights breaking out here in the final 7 minutes.
Yeah, just Balzan just can't seem to get any close. I'm not sure if he's kind of getting in that aero wake there behind the Lamborghini and stopping his progress from getting any tighter to the battle. He seems to stall out right at that point, doesn't he?
Seems
you think
that way.
The gap, you see him coming in like a couple of 3/10 certain laps, and then suddenly he gets to this point and he can't seem to get any closer. Understeer there through the middle of turn 13. You could see it with the front wheels turning through the corner a little bit more excessively. This will be a big learning curve for this team as well in these hot conditions, getting a read on the car. They've got excellent engineers there. Chachi kind of leads the way for Eric Bachelot in terms of dialing the knobs on this race car. They could be even stronger come tomorrow in race conditions.
It's interesting to note they're running 4th in class out of 4 cars, last in class, which on the surface doesn't sound all that impressive, but they have been super, super impressive since they turned up here, not even knowing they were going to be in the pro class. I think this is a debut where the box score may not tell the full story.
No, that's for certain. They've been very, very competitive. Great debut, and lots to look forward to tomorrow, as well as the last 5 minutes of this race. Farnbuckle, just immense. That car looked edgier to me than Colin Brown's car behind him. I think Colin's car has maybe got a bit more grip through this latter phase of the race, but Maru's just hanging on for dear life with that Acura and keeping that lead. He knows how important it is regarding the championship.
And Halen took another 4/10 out of Brown on that last lap. Will he be close enough to make a move?
Jordan deep. He thought about it, but Robbie just rolling good speed from the turn-in point to the apex. He's releasing the brake pedal. Done a really nice job, and the more laps he does, the more confidence he's got with defending with that.
But how hard is it to be mistake-free, under pressure,
Huge.
lap after lap? Robbie, I mean, there's been something to write home about, just how well he's withstood the pressure from Pepper.
He's won a ton of races over the last 3 years here in North America across the various championships that he's run, but this is, standing up to a pro lineup. He's still graded as silver. I know that's up for adjustment for next year. The list was just released last weekend, and he was highlighted that he may be bumped to gold, but nonetheless, this is showcasing that even if he is, he can race with the best. Look at Pepper's approach there. That was unusual.
You allowed to do that?
They didn't really talk much about track limits in the drivers' meeting, but that's basically creating a shortcut by going completely all 4 underneath that curbing there.
I'll give Jordan credit for being creative, unless, of course, it was a save that we didn't see that led to him being out there.
Yeah, sometimes you can have a subtle little moment. We don't even catch it with our eyes, and Jordan just had to straighten the wheel a little bit, cut across there.
Next time through will be telling. We'll see if he repeats, but maybe more telling is the fact he lost some ground on that lap, and that may have had something to do with what might have been just a nearly imperceivable bobble.
It's going to be tight here regarding the clock. I think we may be looking at just 2 laps left here, including this one. I think for our leader, Caldarelli, he's going to be really tight when he comes around, being right around that 2-minute mark. So potentially may see the white flag, I'm not sure.
That would be great news for the Turner camp.
Yes, it would.
How about this, though? It's the sister car to the leader behind the Turner car. So can K-Pax, with the lead that they have, tell Andrea to manipulate his pace.
Love it, yeah.
To make sure that Pepper's got an extra crack at him.
That could be a great option for them.
On the other hand, you do that, and then you risk Balzan making a move.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not clear that that's going to be to your benefit. And there you go, Stewart's track limits warning to Jordan Pepper at turn 15. That's where we saw him with that unconventional line the last time through. So the Stewarts pretty quick in their reaction. Do not do that again.
I can see Brian Till getting all twitchy with that one. Watching the Queen's funeral last week, and some of the procession wasn't directly in line there, and I thought, I'm glad Brian's not Stewart on the day.
Here we go. This is going to be interesting.
The clock.
No white. Oh, I did see the white flag.
Well, it's going to be tight. If he runs a fast lap, he may be getting the checkered flag a second or two shy of the full 90 minutes.
He's been running sub 2:01 second laps every time by. We'll see if the white flag waves for these guys. Yes, it does. Robbie Foley's got a mirror full of Jordan Pepper. Balzan has fallen off a little bit, and that has allowed Pepper to now focus on the offensive. 1 lap to go at Sebring. Second in the pro class up for grabs.
Yeah, it's full send time. I mean, Robbie's got to be thinking, okay, he's had a look and peeked down the inside many times in turn 7. You see Robbie's approach to that corner. He just really turns in super late. Right here, he just keys on getting the power down. Look how good the car gets the power down. Pepper's under the attack now.
Yeah,
watch Balzan. He's got a big run on Pepper.
Pepper had his hands full, and now he does come under attack. Balzan in the Ferrari making its debut, working the outside of Pepper in the Lamborghini side by side into the hairpin, and Jordan Pepper keeps him at bay.
Foley's got to be loving this. Biggest breathing room he's had all day long.
It's a beautiful sight out the rear view camera of that BMW. It's Pepper playing defense all of a sudden. Alessandro Balzan has left the best for last. He's on the attack.
This is awesome racing. Just total commitment, total execution by all 3 of these drivers in just bringing every ounce of performance out of their 3 respective race cars. 3 different manufacturers employed here. You got the BMW, the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, so evenly matched.
All 3 visibly on the ragged edge at one of the most difficult circuits you will find anywhere on the planet. At the front of the field, though, it was a master class from K-Pax Racing. Andrea Caldarelli and Michele Beretta back in victory lane. They dominate race 1 at Sebring.
Did you see the clock? Right at 0, right on the stripe.
It's like they know what they're doing.
Pretty awesome.
We drop back here, 3-way battle, and here comes Halen taking a peek up the inside of Brown. Oh, that was awfully tight between the 2 of them. That might have been the best chance that he was going to get, and he gave it a run.
He really did, and it's allowed Farnbacher to escape a little bit.
Foley fins off Pepper. Coming home in 4th spot will be Balzan. That move, that lunge from Halen, that's given Farnbacher some breathing room. He comes through turn 17. Huge for championship points. Mario Farnbacher, Ashton Harrison, and Racer's Edge win on home soil here in the state of Florida. 2nd place to Colin Brown, George Kurtz, and Riley Motorsports, while Wright comes home 3rd with Jan Halen and Charlie Luck. But what a duel it was. And the winners in the AM class, GRC Competizione, they come home in the 10th spot overall. Charlie Scardina and Adolfo Triarci get the job done. Exciting stuff at Sebring. We'll wrap it all up here in just a moment. It was close coming to the checkered flag, Calvin. K-Pax just, well, you tell me. Did they sneak it in under the gun?
Well, the total race time was, instead of 90 minutes, it was 89 minutes, 59 seconds, and 85 thousandths. So they were 15 thousandths shy of a full 90-minute race. But you know what? When the checkered flag comes out early, it's still the race result. So there you go. I knew it was going to be tight if Caldarelli kept on the pipe there on that last lap.
That's about as close as I've ever seen it. And I wonder, on the other side of that tent, is that a good thing or a bad thing for Jordan Pepper? Would he have wanted another lap, or did he feel like at that point his chance to get Foley was gone, and it was probably best case scenario to finish where he did in 3rd?
I think it was. With that little bobble that he had coming out of turn 5, suddenly Foley was gone. And he certainly won't going to catch him, even with another lap to run, and he may have lost that position to Balzan.
So Ashton Harrison and Mario Farnbacher, with their class win, they should take the points lead in Pro-Am. That is their 4th win of the season and their 3rd in a row. How about that? Their last 4 races, their finishes have been 2nd, 1st, and 1st. And that is how you overcome a points deficit.
Yeah, I think they're going to have, unofficially, 8-point lead over the 45 squad, and then a 9-point lead over the 04.
Not bad. We came in with just 4 points covering those 3 teams. 9 points now with 2 rounds of the championship to go, 3 races worth of points. We got the one final 90-minute race tomorrow, and then the 8-hour to wrap things up. And unlike previous years, the full 8 hours pays points in 2022. So that will be can't miss in 2 weeks' time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Gotta love it. Championship coming down to the final few laps, and fitting the top 3 in points. They finish in the top 3 here in this race today, and I suspect they'll find each other tomorrow, because that's just the way the season has gone up to this point. Checkered flag has flown over Sebring International Raceway. Andrea Caldarelli, Michele Beretta. Marco Bappelli will be joining them at Indianapolis, and K-Pax Racing are the overall race winners today. Robbie Foley and Michael Dinan hold on for a hard-earned runner-up finish. They are done for the weekend. Previous commitments for Michael Dinan mean he will not be, and the team will not be racing here tomorrow, but a good run for them at Sebring with just the Indy 8-hour left in their calendar. Then you find Goikhberg and Pepper, Franco and Balzan completing the top 4 overall. Farnbacher and Harrison, how close was it? Well, just about 1/10 of a second between Farnbacher and Brown at the final checkered flag. And you find Halen and Luck finishing in 3rd, still very much in the hunt for the championship. And a little further down, Triarsi Competizione, the lone AM-class car. Winners by default, but a strong run up inside the top 5 overall at times, and led laps overall during the pit cycle. They'll be pleased with their performance here on home turf in the Sunshine State of Florida. Sets the stage nicely for what should be an exciting race tomorrow. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but first, let's hear from our overall winners.
Well, a dominating performance for this duo sets them back into the top step of the podium. The first win for you guys in 4 races, which seems like an eternity for this group. Michele, you kicked off this venture for this team today. What led to victory for you two?
I have to thank the team, all the crew. They had a great effort to put the cars back on the speed we had in the first races. So great thanks to them, and also everybody who did this great job. We drove a very clean race, no mistakes, and a good pace. So hopefully tomorrow we can do it again.
When we think about doing it tomorrow, Andrea, you're on the brink of your 2nd championship within this series. Does that add pressure to the weekend, or are you ready to get it off you?
No. I mean, we live with pressure, so it's normal. We have to live with it. To be fair, after the last couple of weekends, I started to be a little bit concerned of how we could get the pace that we had at the beginning of the year. And the guys of K-Pax Racing and Lamborghini Scuola Corsa, they worked really hard in this 3 weeks that we had from Road America, and yeah, this result goes to them. Hopefully tomorrow we can repeat it, and then a good and funny race in Indianapolis.
I would say that pace was on the showcase here today. Congratulations.
Snaps a 4-race winless drought, which for most teams is nothing to think twice about, but as strong as they have been this year, that was a big deal for them to get back on top of the podium after a disappointing 2 previous rounds at Elkhart Lake and Watkins Glen. And that has them set up nicely going into tomorrow, and certainly looking ahead to the Indy 8-hour. They've got designs on an overall win in that race. That would be a huge deal for them.
Yeah, but I think there's going to be some shake-up. I think DXDT, I heard this weekend, are going to put an all-pro lineup together in one of their cars. So I don't think it's going to come easy. It'll really come down to which manufacturer suits that Indy circuit more than another. It should be a great fight.
Pro Class battle will be fun at Indy. Pro-Am will be too, as it was here today, Amanda.
Well, they started P3 on the track here today, and Ashton Harrod took it to P1. I want to go back to the overtake on Charlie Luck on that restart. How did you plan that one out for yourself?
Well, you know, I've been behind him before on a restart, and every time I'm behind anybody that's a competitor, I always try to monitor what they're likely to do. And so I kind of just took the knowledge I had and tried to put it to work. And I had a really great restart coming out of 17, and I just stuck behind him and took the position as soon as I saw the opportunity. He did fight me for it, and I would have done the same, so I don't blame him for that. But, you know, he made me work for it just as much as any of the other competitors would. So once I got it, you know, done, I just had to focus forward.
I don't like to do math, but I think this win did give you guys the points lead at this point, the 4th win of the season, 3rd win in the row. Mario, why can you guys win this championship?
I think in Indy, but time will tell. I don't like to say something in advance. Time will tell, and yeah, we will see.
It's a strong team behind them as well. What John Meraki has done, making the step up a few years back to GT3 with Acura. And they've established themselves as one of the premier Acura teams, not just here, but across the planet.
They really have. It's been wonderful to see such a hard-walking group come from some of the lower classes in our championship ladder and make that step up to GT3 like it was no big deal. Immediate success, ton of wins over the last few years, and here they are again. Really going to be in a major play. They got the championship lead tonight. Long way to go, though. That 8 hours is going to be pivotal because a lot can happen in 8 hours. But they got the pace here today. Mario did an amazing job. I really felt that Colin's car and Colin collectively may have had a little edge on him, but he kept it together there.
He did, and was able to hold on to the checkered flag. Big result for them. Big result for Honda, HPD, and Acura as well. And they'll look to build on that coming up tomorrow. Of course, in the AM class, what more can we say? The Triarci guys, even when they run unopposed, I think the thing that's most impressive with them is where they run in the overall order. It's not uncommon to see them in the top 5, and the pace they've shown, a young team in GT3 racing, debuted just here a year ago, have been they've been really a fun story to keep an eye on.
Yeah, top 5 and led, albeit through the pit stop exchange, but they were close enough to the leaders.
Highlights of the race, and this was a low light for Real Time and Bimmer World. Big contact there in the very back of the pack between Vogel and Hull. Those cars effectively eliminated right there before they even made it to the start line. The race did continue for a couple of quarters, however, and Michele Beretta was able to solidify his lead. Could fight a little further back. How about Manny Franco in his first GT3 start, going side by side with Misha Goldberg? Ultimately lost out in that duel and had to settle back in line. Then the restart, big move here. You heard Ashton talk about it. This is how she got around Charlie Luck.
That really set up their day. They got that track position. They wouldn't relinquish it for the remainder of the race.
A little bit of contact, but all's fair in Love and Racing, right? She's able to squeeze ahead, grab that spot, and they stayed out front. This was a big moment as Luck went around late in his stint. Jan Halen then put on the back foot as he tried to recover. More on that in a moment. Here, though, was a crucial moment in traffic. Mario Farnbacher working his way past Charlie Scardina, and it looked like, I'll make that Onofrio Triarci, and it looked at the moment like Colin Brown might be in a position where he could go on the attack from there.
Up front, it was the K-Pax day. Andrea Caldarelli, another win. Just one step away from the championship.
And right behind them, the fight in Pro-Am. It was fierce all day long. Mario Farnbacher finished the job that Ashton Harrison started, leading home Wright Motorsports and Riley Motorsports, the top 3 within that Pro-Am class, finishing in the top 3 positions on the road today. And it's reshuffled the points situation going into the penultimate race of the season tomorrow. Exciting stuff here in Sebring for day 1. We'll do it again tomorrow. Race 2 of the weekend scheduled to go with pre-race coverage around 1 o'clock local time tomorrow afternoon. For Amanda and Cal, I'm Ryan. So long for now from Sebring.